Since 1961, Quartz Plumbing has offered friendly, reliable service to residences all over Bergen County, New Jersey. We are a fourth-generation family-owned business, unmatched in customer satisfaction and professionalism while working in your home. We are the hydronic heating and water filtration specialists, with a workmanship guarantee to put you at ease so you can rest comfortably. We offer financing for those big projects that catch you off guard, and we have a network of excellent contractors in all fields for any project you wish to tackle. Call our responsive office team, and we'll dispatch a handsome and educated technician to lay the smackdown on all your plumbing issues. You can also find us at quartzplumbing.com, search us on Google, or follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.
Like, subscribe, and share, please.
Welcome back to another episode of Plum Bums Podcast, the blue-collar tradesman show where we talk about small business and entrepreneurship in 2024, the crazy times of 2024. We're dealing with Noah's Ark this week. This is miserable to work in.
Oh, you talking about the rain? I thought you were talking about. I thought you were talking about
leading animals 2x2 across the highway.
No, you showed me an article today or yesterday, where I've been to Noah's Ark. And you said there was an article that said that it's one of the worst places to visit. I'm like, it was amazing.
Yeah, it was incredible.
It was awesome.
No, I'm talking about the torrential downpour of the rain that won't stop.
So why you're dressed like that?
Oh, say the roles are reversed now. You're making fun of my clothes. No, this is the only thing that's dry. It was ridiculous today. It sucked. But we just want to remind you that this show is proudly sponsored by Quartz Plumbing and Heating, one of the top-rated plumbers in Bergen County. We can say that because we are Quartz Plumbing, and we're awesome. Yes?
Yeah.
Would you disagree?
No, I'm a Quartz now.
You could pass. There's gingers in our family.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's mostly the women, but, you kind of snuck by.
All right. Underhanded compliment or underhanded insult, whatever you want to call that.
In addition to being sponsored by Quartz Plumbing, the greatest plumbing company in Bergen County since 1961, we are also sponsored by Promo Bros, promobros.net. Promotional merchandise for all your promotional merchandise needs. They will hook you up with some merchandise for your corporate event, for your personal event, or if you're just looking to print a t-shirt just to have, wear around, whatever, they will make anything for you. They make coasters, koozies, t-shirts, hats. They embroider. It's a really, really good team over there. They're a lot of fun. They make really, really good products. So check them out, promobros.net. We give them another shout out for sponsoring the show. Thanks a lot, guys. But so we have an extremely special guest. I'm actually honored that he's in the studio. Can you believe?
I can't believe that we got him here
in the studio.
Very busy man, very difficult to get.
Had to pay him a really high appearance fee because he's like Liz Taylor. He won't appear. He won't get out of bed in front of $10,000. We have Ronnie Barbarulo. Ronnie Barbarulo is he's actually, well, you know what? Let's take it out of the basics. He's our teacher in school out in Passaic County. But Ronnie has a long career of the plumbing industry. He was voted sexiest blue-collar worker by People magazine in 1988, and again in 94. I have the 94 episode. It's a good read. You should check it out. Ronnie is our teacher over there. He's captivating. You have a ton of experience in the field. You started out plumbing in 1981, the year I was born. I hope that doesn't hurt too bad.
No.
It shouldn't.
No.
You should be proud of that.
Yes, it is.
So listen, we talked about this off camera. We started this show to encourage guys to get into the trades instead of going to college. We're hungry for tradesmen. So Ronnie is a prime example. Ronnie's got a long, long career behind him. I mean, we text you all the time for stuff when we don't know something, and you know what? You know what's respectable? When you don't have an answer, you say, "I'll get back to you. Let me text somebody." So, plumbing guys, we need plumbers. Tell us about getting into the trades back in the '80s. What was that like?
Well-
And you pick up the mic a little bit.
Well, growing up, I was a very good student in school. I did like school. And I loved math. I always have, still do. But as I got older, I enjoyed working with my hands. I wanted to go to college, and I'm not going to lie, my parents had no money for college, and I really didn't understand everything about grants and scholarships. I probably could have got some scholarships and grant money, but didn't know it at the time. I went to Paramus Catholic, and I'm not knocking on them, but like the guidance counselors didn't help me as much because again, they want you to kind of go to college.
Same thing with when I was in high school.
Yeah.
No one ever mentioned the trades.
So it really wasn't a big thing, and so I really loved working for my hands. And I said, you know what? And the reason I became a plumber or I picked plumbing, was because my two uncles were plumbers. Now at the time, my one uncle had built this monster house in Englewood Cliffs with a built-in pool and all this stuff. It was beautiful. He did have, at the time, 8 kids. It was my mom's brother. But him and my other uncle were kind of my, idols. I just loved it. So, I said, well, wow, if he's got all that, in my head, I was like, well, that's what I want. So that's kind of why I picked plumbing. I mean, I did have uncles that were in the construction field, a carpenter and stuff, but more laborers and stuff like that. And they were very active. So that's really why I picked plumbing. And it was kind of ironic because literally I graduated on a Friday night from Paramus Catholic, and Monday morning at 5 o'clock I was in my a.m. in the morning. I was in the parking lot waiting to get picked up to go to a job site in Newark. I was fortunate enough that at the time where we lived in our garden apartments in Fort Lee, where I was born and raised, they had renovated it as like a HUD project.
Okay.
And so my mom, typical Italian woman, used to feed everybody. And so she got to know the owner of the company and the plumbing's foreman, because they had foremen for each discipline: plumbing, masonry, carpentry, electric, whatever. And, she basically called them out and said, hey, listen, my son wants to go in. Can you guys give him a job? So they did. And, the funny part is that, I was down there, 5 o'clock, and I was done. But it was great hours because we were done at 2 o'clock. So it was like, like our hours were like 7 to 2:30, actually, 2:30. So I was home by 3 o'clock. Now, was I tired? Yes.
Yeah.
But I still, as a typical teenager, did go out and do my partying and everything else like that.
Exactly.
But
You look past the tired.
But I never missed work. I was always there on time, and I always did my job. Just real quick, down there, it was very interesting because we had 15 plumbers. There were not all were licensed, but they were plumbers. 2 foremen, they were great. One was very smart, and then we had 2 other helpers with myself. So we all did it. But it got to the point where I guess about 4 months in that I wouldn't say they were abusing us, but they weren't using us properly. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So my boss got fed up and said, you know what? I'm going to take you 3 guys, and you guys are going to put in the 4-inch sprinkler main in building A. And I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Wow.
And the biggest problem was the building wasn't square, it was on an angle. So trying to get our measurements was hard. But we did it. And all 3 of us did it, putting 4-inch black steel pipe up, a big 4-foot wrenches, 6-foot wrenches, and we did it. The best part, though, is I always laugh. 2 things I want to just bring up real quick that I learned down there was, I'll never forget the first time my boss said, well, you're going to rough this sink out, kitchen sink. And you got to tie a vent in and stuff. And he just says, make sure you get the TY the right way. Okay. And I kept saying to myself, the vent to TY goes this way, the drain to TY goes this way. And after I was all done, I sit back and I'm all happy and I look at it. I was like, oh, I'm so proud of myself. And he comes and looks at it, he goes, you still put the TYs the wrong way. I had the drainage one upside down and the other one. But again, it was all a learning thing. And I really have to thank Greg and John because they were excellent teachers for me. And even the guys that I worked with, I mean, we had a fun crew. It was a 6-unit complex, so we even had like tunnels underneath where we walked. But that's where I learned like OS and Y valves and commercial. And I also learned how to work by myself. Yeah. Not to belabor or anything, but like I hung a 6-inch OS and Y valve like 15 feet in the air using tackle and chain and tackle and stuff, and which is something again you learn in high school as far as physics and stuff like that. So I was able to, and I was with 2 other guys, and they were funny because they would break my chops all the time, make fun of me. The one guy would always say, "Can't you like cut thread pipe and talk at the same time? Like, can't you do two things at once?" And I have a lot of great memories of those people. And like I said, I did learn a lot of stuff from them. One of the biggest things I did learn is, and almost cost me severe injury, was I went to cut and thread a piece of 2-inch pipe, 20-footer.
Okay.
Or like 18-foot. And I strapped the 2-inch with the chain vise. And I was just about to turn the machine on. And my boss came out of one of the buildings and screamed, "Don't touch it." And I hit the switch. And I got out of the way, but they both flipped. And that's where I learned of a Rigid 300, which is one of our main threading machines, how dangerous it can be.
Yeah.
And I learned how dangerous, when you swing the dies around, like if you lean over by accident and you get hit in the head, or if you're wearing a loose shirt or a sweatshirt and you get caught in there. So, I learned a lot about safety down there.
That's important.
Yeah. So again, I just continued in the field, and it was a tough time. That was the early '80s. Like I said, it was '81, but it was the early '80s, and everything was booming. But then all of a sudden, everything hit a lull.
Yeah.
So I bounced around to different people that worked, and I got to be honest with you guys that back then there was a lot of licensed plumbers that they would hire you, but they really didn't want to teach you.
Yeah.
Because their philosophy was like, "Well, I'm going to teach you, and then in 5 years." You're going to leave.
You're going to go out and do your own thing.
Why didn't you start with your uncle, though?
Oh, because my uncle was in the union. I apologize.
Oh.
I was going to get that. Yeah, my two uncles were union plumbers.
Oh, okay.
And, my uncle was so good, way back then. My uncle never saw the inside of a union hall. He was always like job to job or worked for somebody. And by both my uncles. And one of the biggest things I'm very, very proud of, just the thing, one's still alive, one's passed, deceased now. But I'll call my Uncle Willie my idol, but he ran the Miami Fontainebleau when they renovated it because he moved to Florida eventually. And my other uncle did all the soldering at the time. Over 5,000 joints, they had one leak and it was on a fitting.
Wow.
But that's how perfectionist that they were. Yeah. And I mean, one thing, just real quick, ironically, was probably from 81, like, I don't know, I'm just going to say like around 86 or something like that, I actually got to work in the house my uncle built. The people that bought the house, I was actually coaching their nephews in football. They needed work done. And I went up there. I was, just about getting ready to go take my license. So it was nice side work. And I was laughing because I remember calling my uncle up and criticizing him that the baseboard was loose. And he's like, "I put that in 25 years ago. Like, what do you think? Screws last forever."
He took it personal.
No, yeah, like that's all. But the funny part with my uncle was I always laughed because he was old school. And I even said, unfortunately, like I said, he was in Florida for a long, long time. He moved down in the 70s before I became a plumber. I always wanted to work with him. And his son said, "You don't want to work with him. Yeah. He's just nonstop."
That generation was, they were built different.
Yeah.
They were workhorses. And like you said, you had that 7 to 2, job. And although you work hard in that time frame, it is nice to get out at 2-3 o'clock because
Yes.
you have your day.
Yes.
You might be tired, but you can do what you kind of want to do after that too.
Exactly, and your body gets used to it. And again, listen, as anything is, I'll say it, anything you do in life, but you have to make a commitment. And if that's what you really want to do and you enjoy, as much as you might want to go out, you're young and you're 18, 19, 20, you want to go out and party and do whatever you want to do, you still have a responsibility, not only as to your job, I mean, because that's your job, but to the person that you're working for, because they don't need to hear on Monday morning when they're ready to do a big job, like, "Oh, by the way, I'm coming in today."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, if you're sick, you got 101 fever or something, that's a whole different story.
Well, that's a lot of kids nowadays that they don't. I think that's a big problem that we're hearing too. Is like the work ethic of younger kids. Like
trying to rely on them.
We've had people that call out for nothing, really
Max,
nothing, and it's like
the saddest thing about it. Not to interrupt you, the funny thing you say, it just not even with plumbing, but in the work industry, is that I don't, like you said, Gen X, whatever it is, but my friend's in HR, and like the funny thing he laughs about is like one of the first questions he'll get on an interview is like, "How much time do I get off?" And usually his answer is, "As much as you want, because you're not working here."
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, seriously.
Okay. So, but like, as I said to him one day, he said to me, he goes, "What do you think the number one question is I get asked like on interviews for kids coming out of college?" And I said, "Well, it's got to be how much money am I going to make?" He goes, "No." He's like, "Well, how much time do we get off?"
That's crazy.
I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Like, you didn't even start yet." So for me, like I said, I took pride in not missing work. Like I said, I had to be really, really, really sick.
Yeah.
And it's carried with me all the way through. And, so again, like you said, I think it's a good work. Like, again, today, I think what a lot of kids don't understand is you have to pay your dues.
Yeah.
And I laugh because my children are older, and we talk sometimes, and I say, where I am now, about 43 years later, since I started, and when I say the statue I have and where I've achieved, it took me 43 years to get there.
Right.
I always laugh. I still tell the thing is that I remember many years ago, I worked for a guy, and they dropped me off in a house in Alpine they were building. And basically, I had to dig out a basement, which was all gravel, no dirt. It was gravel for a sewer line. And when you dig a gravel, you throw it up, it slides back down again, this and that.
Yeah.
But again, a tribute to my parents, who are just both deceased, but tribute to my parents, my uncles, stuff, serving me, the work ethic they built to me. So I always took pride in it. Like I always wanted to, whether it was in school, whether it was in sports, I always wanted to be the best that I can possibly be. Right. I never accepted second best. And I think today the kids need to do that. I think today, too many times kids in anything, they don't understand. Not to get off the subject, I used to always say when I coached for over 40 years, and I coached from first graders to 25-year-olds in football and baseball, and both of my main sports, but I coached basketball, a lot of sports. And one of my sayings was always, you got to learn how to lose before you learn how to win.
Yeah. And
I had a father come up to me one night. He says, you always say that, and I really don't know what it means. I said, well, let me ask you a question. I said, if you're always successful at everything you do, what happens when something goes wrong? How are you going to react?
Throw a tantrum like a baby.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're going to throw a tantrum or something. So I said, when you learn how to lose, we got to work harder the next time.
It's a learning experience. You learn from that.
That's
too.
it. I says, and then you're going to appreciate that.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And I said, so
it's a good rule to live by.
It's like a job. When you do the job right, and plumbing, electric,
and everything goes wrong.
Yeah, no, and we're in an industry that things will go wrong. But again, and listen, you're all gonna have bad days, and you're gonna get ticked off. Especially, it always happens at 4 o'clock. You're ready to clean everything up. Yeah. On the job, that faucet's been on all day. Now all of a sudden you're cleaning up and walking out like, why is there water dripping?
Yeah.
It's like, but again, when you do that, and I love to say it, I always tell people, like I tell you guys, in the class, is like boilers. Like sometimes when you put boilers in, and you can look at it, and it's like a work of art.
Yep.
Because a lot of times people see. The other thing is, Max, you bring up a good point, is that people sometimes today, with plumbing, if they're roughing in a new bathroom and the pipe's crooked or there's cleaner all over, purple primer all over it, they're like, whatever, it's behind the wall.
No.
See, I'm not like that. I mean,
him and his uncle will say, take it out.
No, I've done the same thing. I'll say, take it out. And I've had like the same thing with cleaning up every day after the job. Again, you're doing work in an addition, new house,
the
whatever.
worst part of the job is always cleaning up.
Yeah, no, it is. But
it is.
The worst.
That's the thing that people notice. And I had a helper many years ago that said to me, we were working on a new house. Something. He's like, why do we got to clean up? Nobody lives here. I go, because if somebody comes here to look at the house, the owner, and brings friends, family, whatever, we don't want them walking through garbage. We don't want them to trip on something that we can get sued, whatever. And I said, so that's why we do it. So again, it's about a work ethic, and I think a lot of that starts with you as a person,
right?
And it also starts with kind of your parents too.
Yeah.
It's like like my dad, was not in the trades at all. I mean, he had very bad eyesight. He was considered legally blind, technically. So he worked, wide variety of jobs. Always gave us a good living. My mom, same way. I mean, both of them for reasons couldn't finish high school, but they instilled in me of don't ever accept second best. Don't ever, I actually laugh because I tell my mom, being full Italian, but is that, my mom was like, I could get an A. It's like, why'd you get an A plus? It's like, can you give me a break here? And so, but again, that's why. And the other thing is I say to you guys all the time, and I'll say it to anybody out there, is the day you think you know everything in whatever you're doing, it could be life. Well, not life, but like in your job. Don't do that anymore. Right. Like I love athletic kids today. And today, the other thing is today, athletics, I mean, not trying to get off the subject, but it kind of goes hand in hand. There's so many different clubs, this, that, all this stuff. And we didn't have that.
Right.
We had, I told my kids, I have a 28, 25, and 21, about kick the can. And my kids laughed at me. They're like, you played a game like of kicking a can? I'm like, yeah.
That game was a banger back then.
No, they go, that was fun. I go, yeah, but you guys don't get it. We weren't just kicking the can. Like, we would play soccer with the can, or we would play this with the can. But yes, because we didn't have it. I said to them one day, Sandlot the movie? And I go, yeah. You know how they used to save all their money up to get that one baseball?
Yeah.
I go, yeah. Well, we were the same way, guys.
Yeah.
We used to get bottle caps and bottles and everything else. Because our parents didn't have money to say, oh, go here's $10, go buy 4 baseballs.
Right.
It also wasn't as prevalent. But to go back to your sports background and learning from people who are experienced and learning from people who know a lot more than you, I think with the younger generation too, because I watched this interview with, I don't know if you know soccer at all.
Yeah.
You know Ronaldo?
Yes.
Okay, so he did an interview where he went back to Manchester United, and it was all a younger team. And he goes, I went there to try to give my advice to everybody. And he goes, not one of the younger kids attached themselves to me. Not one of them asked my advice. He goes, when I was a young kid, when I was playing with all these older experienced guys, I attached myself to those people.
Yeah.
And I learned from those people. He goes, I'm 35 years old now. I did it all. I've won all of the awards that you can think of, and not one of them asked me for advice. Not one of them attached themselves to me. And I think that's
crazy.
The mentality. It was insane to me. The mentality, if I had somebody like that on my team, in sports or in business, you attach yourself to the most successful person.
Absolutely.
And you learn everything from that.
I've said to you guys in class, I've said it numerous times where, especially when you own your own business.
Write this down.
Well, wite this down. No, but I say that all the time.
There's one kid in class actually writing it down.
But I'm saying is that, if I'm working with any, like you guys, and yes, I have 40 years experience, you have 10, let's just say that. And we're doing a job together, and you give me an idea. I'm not going to sit around and say, no, you shut up. You only had 10 years. I've been doing this for you. There's a time when you say that. Not to get away from what we're talking about, plumbing and stuff, and a little bit about me, but the thing I always laugh about with kids when I coached them, not that they would argue with it, but they act like they know. And I always just say to a kid, like with baseball, how long have you been playing baseball? Oh, I don't know, 3 years. I go, gee, I've been playing for 40.
Yeah.
So who do you think knows more, me or you?
Yeah.
And because they'll argue with you that they know it. Because everybody watches, TV, and they want to emulate it's just like sports now with all this analytics. I'm a sports fanatic, but I don't like it because coaching to me is from the gut sometimes. You make a gut decision. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
And like the same thing with the trades. I mean, there's sometimes you got to make a decision that, well, I hope this works. And it might and it might not. But again, you learn from it. And I think today, too many younger people, whatever field they go in, they think after 2-3 years.
They know it all.
Whether you're in college or not, I know it all. You don't.
I'll admit that I have that mentality sometimes.
No, and
I feel like you're saying that because I'm sitting here.
I do.
I don't think you do. To an extent, maybe a little bit. But I don't know. Do you think that I shut you down if you have an idea? Or
I think that you want me to be brutally honest? Yes, sometimes. But it's also, again, it's like what you said, going back to your personality. I don't know a quarter of what he knows. And then I don't know even a tiny percentage of what his uncle knows.
See, I go into I sit in class and we open the book and I open it up and I'm like, I know nothing about plumbing. When I scroll through that book and a section that I haven't really looked at, I'm like,
well, it's funny you say that. Not to interrupt you. It's like I go and I'm in the book almost all the time. You guys know that from being an inspector. But there's times I'll read something or I'll come across something like, I didn't know that was in there.
Yeah.
Like last night.
That's comforting to hear, by the way.
No. I'm just saying, but last night, and I'm on the code committee that writes the code now. I didn't do this one, the 21, but I'm was a little bit involved with 24, but I will be with the 27. But I was flipping through something, and I happened to see something about rain sensors that's in the back of the code book, and I'm like, I didn't know that was there. Oh. It's nothing in the code, but like you said, you always can, and that's why I also don't ever, I laugh when people say to me sometimes, depending on whatever the situation is where we are, but something people say, oh, well, you know it all. I'm like, no, I don't. And my children always say to me, "You're always going to classes or taking classes," because I always still want to learn.
Because you want
The
to learn.
people who write the books don't know it all. It's
No,
like,
and I want to learn, and listen. I've been an inspector now for almost 18 years, so there's sometimes some things I haven't done in such a long time.
Yeah.
I'm not embarrassed to say, "Hey Phil, hey Max, how do you do this?"
Yeah. Well,
like,
that's
I haven't
also-
done this in so
Right.
long. Am I doing this right?
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, like poly pipe. I had to do a poly job like 2 years ago for a gas fireplace. I had to run it outside.
Uh-huh.
And when I went to get the poly pipe, my buddy's like, "You need the chafing tool." I go, "Really?" I go, "I don't remember that." He goes,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
And so, I gave it to me to use. But again, I'm not embarrassed to say I don't remember it because when yes, if I got back into it full time, would I learn it right away? Yeah, it's like a bike. But on a whole, when you're not doing it, and it's the same thing as an inspector, not to get back to you guys in a minute. That's why the manual is part of the inspection, and I will fail people if it's not there. But the reason I need it to be there is because sometimes I got to look and I got to see because every manufacturer is different.
Yeah.
We
So I
learned
just-
that lesson. Use that manual. Make sure you open that manual, especially on like wall hungs or like new products.
Yeah.
Because the inspectors, they're going to take a look at it. I actually, when we submit permits, courts submits the full manual for every product we're putting in with the permit.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
It's a good idea. But I mean, we get to look. And like last night, one of the things I brought up, we had the makeup Zoom class for some people that made me get up. But one of the things I said is that, like, if you're doing some commercial or stuff, or even some funky fixtures, and before the job that you're going to put them in. Today, at least we have the internet. Like, you can Google, if you don't have it in your hand, this product and do the manual. Because you might think, like a perfect example is the toilet Kohler came out with like 4 or 5 years ago with the bolts that go through the side and everything else, which I don't know whose brilliant idea that
What a
was at
nightmare.
Kohler. I would like to punch him, but anyway.
Yeah.
And I
skirted
remember the very first one I did. Now, I'm doing this stuff over like almost 38 years, whatever. We did a bathroom for a friend customer, and she gives us the toilet. We take it out, and I'm like,
What the hell
I
is
see these
this?
holes in the side of the thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
So I take out the directions because, as I always say, we're men, we don't read them, but I did. But I didn't read them thoroughly enough. Why? Because I didn't put the grommets on it, so when I screwed it in, it went right through the hole because I didn't have the grommet on it.
yeah.
So I had to take it back out again. And again, you learn. But a toilet that
I'm just
might
throwing
take me a
silicone
half
on
an
it.
hour to put in. That took me about 2 hours to put in.
Yeah.
Right.
By the time I was done, then you got to feed the supply up through the
Yep.
hole, and you got to do this. So
I know exactly the toilet you're talking
so
about.
I mean, but again,
It's a great toilet, though.
It's
Oh,
a
no,
great
it is.
toilet,
It's a
but
very good toilet.
you know what I don't get about the skirted toilets because it's a skirted toilet. They don't want to see.
They don't wanna see
they
the
like
trap
the
and
look.
everything.
Okay, why are
He
we
rolls
doing
his
that?
eyes.
What's the point? Why do you? You're not
aesthetics.
looking at the bulb.
It's
Well,
aesthetic.
Max, let me ask you another question, and you're 100% right, because I always said, like, if somebody wants to go to the bathroom in my house like a guest and say, "Man, that toilet, the base of that toilet's ugly," I would say, well,
Yeah.
or it's dirty,
Yeah.
I'm going to say, "Here, clean it." The other thing I always laughed about was all the companies with the shower valves, and I don't care, I'll say it publicly, I'm not a Growy fan.
Yeah.
Okay, Growy, too Growy.
I feel like everyone who knows you knows that.
Yeah, and
You've
but
made
my
it a
thing
point
is,
in
like,
class.
why do you have to put 42 screws and pieces and stuff on a shower valve that your back is to it 99% of the time?
Yeah.
Okay, and if it's not, I got soap in my eyes, so I'm not really looking at it. And again, if I had a friend or a family comes over and uses that shower and says, "Wow, that looks pretty ugly," then you can see the 2 screws holding the
Yeah,
plate. And I'm like,
it's-
yeah, okay, well, when you got to fix it, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I'll call you.
We actually want to thank our sponsor, Growy, as well. Could you imagine?
that would
Would you
be
feel
awesome.
personally betrayed?
No, again,
Shout out to Growy for sponsoring Plum Bums.
But
yeah.
so getting back to where we started, with me, but just real quick. So, and then what I did was, at the time, there wasn't like really a registered apprenticeship program in the state of New Jersey.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about this. Like
So-
back then,
No, there
what's
wasn't.
the transition?
So, well, when I say registered, there was an apprenticeship program, but it wasn't required for your license. Like, you guys now have to do a certain amount of hours. You
Great
have to
times.
be sponsored by stuff. And we didn't have that. We had, like, you did it. I went to Bergen Tech. I did 4 years, still have all my certificates. I still have my apprenticeship certificate. I have all of that. And that's what we did. But so I went 4 years at night. We learned plumbing 1, 2. Then we did some welding. We did blueprint reading. We did a bunch of things. A little different. It was a little bit more. It was in Hackensack. And just a funny story though is I remember the one time when we learned how to use lead, melt lead, and everything else. And my buddy set the pot up, the flame.
Right.
They put the flame up so high it hit the sprinkler head, set the sprinkler.
No way.
Yeah, we had to shut the school down, and like our room was flooded, and
what's going on? Oh, it's just the plumbers messing around in school.
But again, I go back to those teachers, and I still have those books and those notes.
Yeah.
And like talking on school also, it's like when you're in school now, one of the things I like what some of these high schools are doing, ours in Fairlawn, we do it, they kind of get career pathways. So you could take classes that are going to like for your thing.
Specific.
Because when I was in high school at Paramus Catholic at the time, I was very good, like I said, good at math, and I loved it. I was in pre-calculus, and I basically said to my teacher at the time, like, I knew I was going to be a plumber. Like, what the hell am I going to use this for? 2 square times this in brackets.
Yeah.
And basically, he was really great, and he just retired, actually. It's kind of funny, about 2 years ago. But he said it teaches you how to reason. Calculus will teach you how to reason. I said, what do you mean? He goes, it'll teach you how to look at a problem and try to find out more than one way to solve it. And I can't tell you how many times in this industry.
I never made it to calculus.
No. But I'm saying, I'm pre-cal. I can't tell you how many times that I've taken that philosophy and said, you know what? Well, yeah, maybe we can do this. It's just like the same thing when you have a problem doing something and it's not working, or the screw won't latch or catch on, or the thread or whatever. Sometimes you just got to stop.
Oh, yeah.
Go outside, take a breath, have a cigarette if you smoke, whatever. And I can honestly say probably 95% of the time, you go back and it's like, it goes right in. It's like, really?
You know what? It's funny you say that. We just put in a boiler. The guy's pretty late in the season. It's not warm enough to turn it off completely. He's like, let's just change it. And we had an issue. We put the boiler. You actually put most of it in. And then we're doing the wiring. Couldn't figure it out. And I'm like, listen, it's getting late. I'm going to run this on one thermostat. Just use this thermostat to heat the whole house. We'll be back. Then we came back. I had a little bit of trouble. I called you over. And it was that break where it was just like, oh, I see the problem.
There you go.
And after putting in 9-10 hours a day on the boiler, you just don't have the brain power to figure out complicated stuff.
And the funny thing is, there are people that are very good at wiring, pick it up. I'll be honest, it's never been my greatest forte. Do I understand it? Yes. I have friends that are excellent at it. I have former students that now have their license that are phenomenal at it. I mean, my own boiler's a mess. I got to rewire it again this year. I'm living on a switch.
We love boilers.
And no, I do too.
Yeah.
But the thing is that I've always learned when all the courses that I took is wiring is just really a circuit.
Yep.
It's just a circle. Really, it is. It opens and it closes. It opens.
Well, we had that great guy. You brought in that great wiring guy to class, and it makes zero sense when you're looking at it. And then when somebody explains it to you like that guy did, where it's just a circuit.
It clicks.
Does this open or close it?
That's it.
Just figure. Does this open or close it? Figure it out. And when you look at it in because we're pretty simple people, plumbers. Okay,
no, we are.
We're a little bit barbaric. So when you explain it to us like open close, and then you're like, oh,
in caveman terms, we're golden.
No, we are, and you are 100% right. Like, we're a little barbaric with stuff like that, but again, don't forget, we're plumbers. We're working with pipes and fittings and all different stuff. We're not. And listen, there's guys that don't wire at all.
Yeah.
Okay, but again, depending on the type of service work you want to do, especially for your customers, you want to get a knowledge of that because they call you out and they got no heat.
Right.
Now, the funny thing is, I mean, I laugh because I have guys say to me, well, everything is like computerized now on the wall hungs and stuff, and kind of tells you what the problem is. Well, it does, but that doesn't necessarily mean, I'm not going to say the name of a manufacturer I used, because I've only put a few of them in, and it was working fine. And like a month later, I was going off on reset, and my buddy called me up, one of my very close friends. We did it for him. And we put this particular in for the hot water in the upstairs heat.
Yeah.
But the first floor heat, we put a steam boiler in because he didn't want to change. He did a hot water when he did the addition when he first moved in. But anyway, it's under warranty and everything else. So right away we called, and I was right saying it's a sensor thing that's shot. And we called the manufacturer, and my was like, no. So then the guy's like, take the plug out and let's see if there's anything on there. And there was some dope on there. He says, wipe the dope off. We put it plugged in. That's
Boom.
been 2
See, but
years. That's 2 years later.
But why is it so sensitive like that? Why? It's like
Exactly.
with everything nowadays. It's like with cars. Everything sets off a sensor
Yeah.
in the car. Okay. Why, if there's a little bit too much dope in there, is it setting everything off? Like, we're going through the job, and that's not supposed to be a factor.
No, and the best thing too is I love sometimes with these manufacturers. Again, not picking on anything very particular, but sometimes like even reading the manual, they'll tell you a maintenance thing, but they put it on page like 32.
Yeah.
Could you mind telling me on page 1
Yeah.
so that I will tell the homeowner that I got to do this every 6 months or whatever? And there was a company, I'm just saying, and again, I won't say it. It's not one of my favorites, but I won't. And, a customer of mine, like 3 years later, their indirect water heater, leaked, okay? And
How many years?
like 3 years.
3 years later?
Yeah. And what it was the anode rod. And they said, the guy says, you got to take the anode rod out, you take the picture and send it to me. Okay, so I did. I was able, and by the way, I didn't put it in. So the guy didn't put drains in it. Like, he didn't pipe it right, but I was able to work around it. And when we pulled it out, the anode rod was like disintegrated.
Yeah.
And the guy says, yeah, you're not under warranty. And I says, okay, why not? And he says, well, on page 27, you're supposed to inspect the anode rod every 6 months. But as you just said, Max, why is it that sensitive? Because I would rather you say to me that because of if your water is this high pH, or
Right.
it's this,
Yeah.
you need to put a softener or you need to do this. Like, tell me so I can prepare. But how do I tell somebody they just spent $4,000 for me to put this unit in?
Also, I'm not
and by the
reading-
way, every 6 months you got to pay me another $200
Yeah.
to come back and take your anode rod out, check it,
Drain the
or you
boiler,
can maybe
take the
tell
anode
them
rod
to
out.
do it if they're handy. But sometimes you don't want because they're going to break something.
You got to tell me
And-
the brand off camera so I know.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, it's like, again, you want to tell us this stuff, but you got to put it up front. Like,
Right.
put it in bold-faced letters.
Or don't put 113 pages in your manual, because
Right.
I'm not reading that before I put in a boiler.
No, you're not. And like you said, it just, again, it laughs. And that's why one of the big things I always say to you guys in class, and I say to anybody, especially as an inspector, and I'm guilty of it too. It's just like when you're always looking for something in the refrigerator. Oh, it ain't there. Yeah, but it's because it's behind 4 bottles. And your mother or your wife or somebody's going to yell at you, did you move anything?
Right.
No. And then you move it like, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's the same thing. It's like, you need to read. Because I love when people read something, they go, yeah, you can't do that. I go, did you keep reading? And then they go, oh, wait, it says you can do it. Yeah. Keep reading.
Yeah.
Well, there's an exception, or there's this. So you got to follow that. And listen, I have a problem with inspectors sometimes that don't read.
Yeah.
And they fail guys, they'll fail you guys on stuff.
That's why you tell us all the time, if you're doing a job and you're getting it inspected and an inspector tries to fail you on something, you always say, show me the code. Challenge.
Politely.
Show me the
Politely.
code. Politely ask them to show you because you want to learn, but challenge them because even with all the experience that you guys have, like you said, you guys don't know everything. We don't know everything. You don't know
Right.
everything. So what might be right to you, what might not look well to them, like might not look good to them, doesn't mean it's not code, like you said.
Correct. And it's also like the way we were raised or something, because I got to be honest with you, it's actually funny you say that, Max, because I did a job for a real good, I inspected a job for a very good friend of mine. We've known for each other for years. And we did a gas test. So he had a cap on the one end and he had the gauge on the other end. And I found it kind of odd. Like, why didn't he just tie it into the valve and everything else? He was ready. He just had to tie it in. And he says to me, he goes, can you test against a valve? Now, I've tested against valves. I've passed inspections against valves, but I never really thought of it. So I said, well, gee, Jeff, that's a great question. I got to look into that. And I went back and I looked in the code and I found the section. And yes, you can, as long as it can withstand that pressure, because some valves can't, depending on what you do. And then there's also how much working pressure. But again, there's a perfect example. Like, I never knew that. And so I learned from him that I guess you know, or actually, now he knew the answer, but like I said, I learned from him. So again, like you said too, Max, inspectors go on jobs sometimes, and it's not because they, it's wrong. They just don't like it, and that's the way. Because I remember one time many years ago when spiral vents first came out, right? And I loved them, and I still do, and I put one on. And the plumbing inspector in Fort Lee at the time was older, very old. And he comes on the job. He goes, I got to fail you. I go, why? He goes, you can't use that. And I literally said to him, I said, do you know what it is? And he literally said to me, no. I said, how do you tell me I can't use it?
That's insane.
I says, it's an air limit separator.
Well, I don't like it, so you can't use
no,
it.
and that's what I'm saying. It's like, like you guys hear me all the time talk about the relief valve straws, the PVC. Yeah, does it look stupid? But it meets code. It's in the code book. It's got a standard, so it's good. Whether I like it or not doesn't matter. It's fine. And
unless it's an air admittance valve.
No, yeah. Well, we were actually today I broke down and I said that to a guy on an inspection. I said it leaves vinegar in my mouth.
I feel like as soon as you get on the board to write the code, that's the first thing that's coming out.
No, because it does have it. You know what it is, Phil, and I'm glad you brought it up. It's that because this all goes into what we're talking about being a plumber. You know what? Yes, I'm old school and not as old as like my uncle. He, God rest his soul. He would probably be 85, 86, whatever. No, actually, it'd be like 89. But he would tell you, like, when he started, everything was lead and oakum, all galvanized. We didn't have electric drills. It was hand drills.
Right.
Okay? And that's why, like, I laugh when I offered, like, I got a couple Sawzalls and something I want to sell for nothing, and you guys are like, no, it ain't battery. I'm like, I'd like to see you guys drilling holes with this crank thing and stuff.
I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have been a plumber.
My uncle, like, it's funny, we laugh about PEX and all this other stuff now. Like then, when no hub couplings came out and PVC came out, that was like, oh my god!
Yeah,
like they just invented another world because everything was cast iron, galvanized, lugging that stuff, pouring lead, all that stuff. But the point is that we're a plumber, and if you're not, there is a lot of satisfaction in doing that. And yes, you know what, Phil, you're right. There are times where I got to drill 2 more holes. And like you're tired, you just drilled about 30 of them. Your arms are hurting and everything else.
Just think about the old school guys who were doing this.
But it's not even that. You know what, Max? It's like, really, you really want to put an air mince valve on it? Like I don't want a homeowner. Listen, I don't begrudge any homeowners, even as an inspector, if they're polite enough and stuff. Like I'll help them a little bit, but I don't begrudge homeowners doing their own work. But I don't want to make it to a point where we get so lazy as plumbers that people really technically don't need us.
It is true.
I mean, it's sad now when I know somebody that works for a company where they actually have what do you call it? It's like Web Doctor, WebEx, or whatever that not WebEx,
WebMD.
Yeah, WebMD. Well, it's the same thing with plumbing. Like basically, you go on with this plumber. Like it could be us, any one of us.
Yeah.
And like, well, yeah, this is what my toilet is. Okay, let me see what's the toilet. Okay. Yeah, go to Home Depot or go to Supply House, get this thing. Like, well, that's great. What did I just do? Like, don't get me wrong, not to interrupt you, just real quick to finish up. There are times like I've had customers call me up and it was a stupid, like I got no heat. And like the first question I'll say to them, and I know the battery's like, electronic. I'm like, go to the thermostat. Go to the thermostat. Is it on? And they'll go to, what are you talking about? Is there anything on the screen right now? They're like, no. How about you change the batteries?
Yeah.
They change the batteries like, oh, hey, the boiler came on.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
And again, I don't.
That'll be $180.
Yeah, well, no, it's just a real funny story. You say that. It's a funny story. I got to tell us. You'll laugh. You guys will laugh. And one Sunday, I get a phone call from a rabbi in our town, and he had no hot water. And so I was going to church. So I says, Rabbi, I'll call you when I get out of church. He says, no problem.
Sounds like the beginning of a joke.
No, it's not.
The rabbi.
It's not. And it was funny because when I called him back, I said to him, take a picture. Let's get on FaceTime and let me see the water heater. It was a Bradford White. So I said, he goes, I keep trying to light the pilot, but it won't stay lit. I said, well, are you holding it down for 30 seconds? He goes, yes. Because I read it. I said, okay, no problem. I said, all right, take so you got the cover off. I go all the way to the bottom. You see that T? It's a white T. It's got a red button in the middle of it. He goes, yeah. I go, push that button. So he pushes it, and it went in a little bit. Because it didn't go in far. I said, no, that's all right. Just leave it. So now try to light the pilot. And he tried to light the pilot. It lit it. It stayed on and everything else. He had hot water. He says, oh, my God. I go, yeah. I said, you went off on reset. I said, we really should check it out because that means you're getting some air blockage or something on it. Yeah. But you should be good for today. So I was teasing him. I said, well, that'll be $185. And he's like, are you kidding me? I go, no, that's a service call. He goes, all right, well, I says, no, Rabbi, I'm only kidding. I said, I'm just teasing you. And
it's only $100.
I said, the only thing is I really feel bad that you had to get down on your stomach and your white shirt got dirty. Yeah. But he was laughing. And you want to know something? In all honesty, I probably got at least 20 different jobs from the congregation. And they said, Rabbi raved how you were so polite. And it says, well, that's what you do. You help people.
Yeah. We talk about this all the time, and you bring it up all the time, and you bring it up in class all the time, and you're totally right. And when you go to a customer, you can make your money, you can make good money, and you can be successful and profitable without nickel and diming.
Correct.
Because when you have I don't know if we talked about it before, but we go into houses. I changed a boiler that my grandfather originally put in, and these people have been living there that whole time. There's a reputation. There's a history here, and if we go there with someone who's been with us for a long time, and I go there and I have to spend a half hour doing something, a lot of times if they've spent a lot of money or they're given just, you know what, you're good this time, don't worry about it, just make sure you refer me and give me 5 stars.
That's it.
And they will rave about you, and it's not that much off our back, you know.
Well, no, I'm not interrupting you. Like you were saying, we were talking earlier, all of us. But like one of the things my uncle taught me was, and he was a union plumber, so he was on a lot of bigger, not say commercial jobs, but bigger jobs. And my uncle, the best piece of advice to this day I never forget. He says, "Neatness is 95% of the job."
100%.
He said, "If you're neat and clean, you will get more work than you can ever handle."
Yep.
And I can't tell you that I've gone in houses and like I see you guys, but I always had a wet dry, a little 2-gallon wet dry vac. I had Fantastic. I had this cleaner, that cleaner, and I always cleaned it. And I used to love people say to me, "Well, the electrician's got to get in there tomorrow. Don't worry about it." No,
Yeah.
I don't care what he does, but I'm leaving it clean.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't even care what a customer's house looks like. We go into houses, whether they're hoarders or something like that. I don't care. I still wipe my feet or take, I don't take my shoes off because of insurance reasons, but I treat that house just like it's brand new.
Right.
It's like the same thing. I don't treat you any different the way you live. I don't care if you live in the suburbs or you live in the inner city. I treat you the same way. And I remember when I first started in the business, which really turned me off, with some guys. I knew guys that worked for a company, but they would go do some work and they would go downstairs and literally break things to get extra work. Because the people were so old, they really couldn't make it down the stairs.
Oh
and it's
my
like,
God.
That's freaking horrible.
do you really have to do that? Like to me, the only thing I do is when I go downstairs, like I always used to say to people, the 2 things I always look at when I go on a job is your water heater and your main shut-off valve.
Yeah.
And I said only because if your water heater's getting older, it's time to change it. And your main shut-off valve, you should have one valve that you can't
Exactly.
turn.
Yeah.
Like if it's a ball valve, whatever the case is. And people have always said this to me. Like just recently, I went on a job. Well, the guy had some issues for an inspection. He's a friend of mine, and we went on a job. And I looked at the water heater. It was 19 years old. So I said to the homeowner, I said, while he's doing the job, you might want him to change the water heater.
You're working on borrowed time.
So
here.
he calls me up like 2 hours later. He's like, "Thanks, man. They want me to change the water heater." I'm like, "Well, it's the right thing to do. You're doing construction now.
Right.
Like, do you want to finish everything and then the water heater's going to
Exactly.
blow?" Because it was like bathroom, like with a bathroom combination laundry room type deal.
Because then they'll hate you.
Exactly.
Then they'll be like, "Oh, see, now he's
Exact-
got to come back and gouge me."
Yes, I mean it's like the same thing. You guys, I know you guys have done, like you're under a sink, but just to put a faucet in, but the valves don't really work. Well, that's a different story. But whatever, the trap and everything is
You
rotted.
change everything if
So
it's-
you just
if
give
it's-
them a thing. But not only one, so they can't call you back 2 days later. It's leaking, and blame you because you were under there.
Right.
But now they got good. They have a good peace of mind.
Yeah.
Because nothing's going to blow under there.
Yeah.
And that I think the biggest thing is another thing that people listen. Everybody's on a budget. Everybody's going to look at cost. But again, I always say to people, you get what you pay for. There's plumbers out there that I wouldn't recommend to my worst enemy, and then there's plumbers that I think the world of because just the work. And I see it as an inspector. Whether it's service work, whether it's this. It's funny. You go on one job, a rough or whatever, of a house or an addition for one plumber, and they're missing this. Go on the other job, and everything is to the T. Perfect. Yeah. Nothing missing. Everything's ready to go. This and that. And, again, like you said, all it takes is a little bit of time to put in a little bit of extra effort.
It goes a long way.
And everybody doesn't. Listen, I love what people used to say to me, and you guys probably run into it all the time every day now. And you'll say, okay, well, I can be there after 3. Let's just use that as an example.
Okay.
And they'll say, well, why can't you give me more exact time? Because we're doing this particular job starting at 10. It should really only take us about 4 hours, but we could run into some problems because it's old, whatever it is. And I don't want to tell you I'm going to be here at 2, and then I'm definitely going to get here till 3:30 or something. So and I might be here earlier. I'm just giving you a heads up. But But like, you know, when you call and we're on our way, or you call we're going to be a little late, so they're not standing around.
That's huge for people.
That's very big because people's time is precious. The thing I laugh about though is they'll criticize us when you say, well, you know, hypothetically, not saying you do this, or a lot of guys do this, but just say you said, well, we'll be there between 12 and 4. And they're going to bitch about like 12 and 4. I got to sit here for 4 hours. But meanwhile, the phone company tells you, oh, we'll be there between 8 and 4.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or
We'll
7
be here,
and 7.
We'll be here Tuesday in September.
Okay. Like I called, yeah. My wife, our phone went out years ago. I don't even have a home phone anymore, and landline. And there's something wrong with the phone, and my wife called up to make the appointment. The guy goes, the lady says, we'll be there between 7 and 7. So I come home. I said to my wife, what is she nuts? So I called her up. I says, you're telling me you got like 1,800 workers on the road. You guys can't give us morning or afternoon. I'm not asking like 8 to 10.
Right.
I'm asking like 8 to 12 or 12 to 4.
Yeah.
Just
or something like
a little
that.
something.
And all of a sudden she goes, oh, you know what? I could get a guy there about 8:15. And the guy was there at 8:15. But I was like, I'm not going to sit here all day waiting for you. So, you know, people's time is very
It is. They take that to
important
heart.
and stuff like that. So anyway, you know, getting back to me, just real quick, is that I went to school and you know, I took put my time in, worked for much. I was very I guess grateful is the word, but I did hook up with a guy in Ridgewood, Tony DePhillips, the plumbing, and Tony, talk about a whiz at wiring. This guy, I remember one time we were at a bank or something. They had steam zone valves.
Was this before you got your license?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he opened up the box. There had to be at least like 600 wires in there. I'm like, you actually know what that is? He goes, yeah.
Wait, Steam has zone valves?
Yes, they commercial wise, you can put zone valves on. Yes, so you just learned something.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that, yeah.
Yes, I'll show it to you. I'll get you a picture of it. But anyway, but he taught me a lot. But the other thing was I was able to work in Ridgewood for 2.5 years pretty much, and that was a really great learning experience because there's a lot of old plumbing and stuff in those towns.
Ridgewood's great for
You're
that.
going to have
so-
to cut that out because it makes me look like an idiot. Steam has zone valves.
I didn't know.
No,
I didn't know
that's
that
fine.
either.
But the funny part is with the Ridgewood, it was that my boss said to me that I never would get into a problem without being able to figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's where Ridgewood came in handy because you had to be careful, like, you know, cutting brass pipe. You know, I learned, I think after the first job I did, when I cut one piece of pipe and it started leaking over there, then I cut that piece of pipe, then it started leaking over there.
Oh, yeah.
And my boss is like, dude, we only gave her a price to replace 20 feet. Now we're going to have to
It happened to me where I was fixing brass pipe in a crawl space. I fixed a leak in one part of the crawl space. We leave, everything is fine, and she calls us back a couple days later. Now there's another leak, but it's down the line. Because anytime you touch that stuff down the line,
my
everything
advice,
always
as
goes.
I've always said it, is now, like if I would have to do it today, I'm going to start here and I'm going to go all the way over to there, and that's it. I'm not touching it.
Yeah.
Like one of the things I did learn though with brass is my buddy's father owned like 3 big apartment buildings. So one day he says, we got to change a couple of Gerber shower valves. This was before tempering valves and everything else. And it was like in Newark or whatever. And so we go down there and we open up the wall. And it's all brass. I'm like, oh, this ain't, and we're on like the 4th floor. I'm like, this ain't going to be good. So he's like, no. He goes, I got the special couplings. And I can't think of the name of them offhand, but there's couplings that you can solder to brass to copper.
Yeah.
So
I've used them.
yeah, so I still have some. But where I'd hold back really tight, or he would with the wrench, and then we would cut with the sawzall, but like make a nice cut, you know, grind it down, but not any of the wobbly. Because like, you know, you start doing it, you know, it's just like steam piping. You know, I don't know about you guys, but you probably do it. But like I always used to give it the old college try, get the wrench on it. No, okay, that's not happening. And then we just, you know, I'm gonna either lose my back or I'm gonna drop, you know, something else. And so you just go get the sawzall and you cut it out. But again, you always got, and again, my boss, and I think this is good where anybody has to, is that you have to, at some point, give them things to do, like say, hey, go do it. And you have to, as a boss or employer, whatever you want to do it, have to accept that he might screw it up.
Yeah.
Okay, and it might take longer, but that's the only way you're going to learn.
Exactly.
You just don't want to learn by like flooding somebody's house out
Yeah.
or something like that. But again, I'm laughing because we lived in garden apartments and my mom and dad were the supers. But like I said to you, my father wasn't, of course, mechanically inclined, had bad eyesight. And I'll never forget, I had to go change. I'd been doing plumbing for about a year or so, year and a half, whatever. But I did mostly big commercial work, you know. So a lady's faucet was dripping, and my mom said, we had the part. She said, can you go fix it? I go, yeah, what's that? Shut the water off, whatever. Only one little problem. I forgot to shut the water off.
Yeah.
And it was the hot. So, and don't forget, the garden department is coming off the boiler, so it's really hot.
Yep.
So I had to hold my hand on there, and couldn't hear my father. And then I was able to pack enough towels on it. Like I said to my father, hold on to this. I ran downstairs, shut it off, because then you try to find the individual riser valves. But again, no, there was nothing damaging at it, but you learn. That's how I learned.
Well, he that's how I learned. He taught me backwards. So when I first started with him, he just started, okay, we're doing boilers. And it was just boiler after boiler after boiler, and he would put me on a boiler, and I was like, it came, I guess it came pretty quickly with that, and you learn I learned all the hard stuff first, and then when it came time to, like you said, doing a faucet.
The rest of the stuff kind of falls into place.
Yeah, but then a faucet became more of a problem for me, doing all that stuff than the boilers, and I was like, isn't this one supposed to be easier than this?
Max, the funny thing is, it's funny, and as Phil said, I mean, I know his family and stuff from being around so long too. They'll laugh. We'll talk to them and say, when I started the industry, again, over 44 years ago, there was 3 flappers for toilets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now there's 42.
Yeah,
I know.
it's ridiculous.
Okay, Cola's got 17 on their own.
Yeah.
This ring, that one work on this one. American Standard's got this plunger. But the point is like you were saying, is that even faucets. You used to be able to put faucets in your sleep, in a sense, once you got rolling. Nowadays, you got to literally open up the directions. How's this going down?
Yeah. They don't even come assembled from the factory anymore.
No, and it's just, again, but that's why... again, I think another thing for any person that likes working with their hands, likes challenges, likes gratification. When I say gratification of a job, this is one of the better jobs. For trades, plumbing. We're plumbers, but trades, because like carpenters, when they build stuff, I have a good friend of mine. He's kind of semi-retired. He was, he had actually worked, I think, for Sony for 25 years or something, and then they closed up or whatever in Mawa. And then he do carpentry. He opened up a carpentry business, trimming and stuff. But we would do bathrooms together, him and I, real good guy. But lately, he's been building stuff in his garage. We built coasters the other day, take some old swords and stuff. And I'm just, I think that's amazing. Even my son, because we still have wood shop in Fairlawn, my son took it. And both of my sons really weren't interested in being plumbers. They saw how hard their father worked and hands and stuff.
Yeah.
But my son made some beautiful things for my wife. And he goes, Dad, you're right. It feels so good. I made this. I said, yeah, Dominic. I said, for me, whether it's a bathroom, whether it's, roughing it in, finishing it, a boiler, whatever the job is, when I can look back at it and I can say, wow, look at that.
Absolutely.
That came out really nice. It makes you proud because you accomplished something.
Yeah.
Okay, listen, don't get me wrong. When you're in corporate and, you
make a lot of money.
Well, you make money,
nice.
but no, I'm saying you close that deal or something, you're definitely going to feel accomplishment. But that might not be as much. Like I said, the other biggest problem with corporate today, we're talking about, there's a lot of different
Don't
facets.
go off too much of a tangent. We got to take a break soon.
But I'm just saying is that, they can come in tomorrow and tell you, it was nice talking to you.
Yeah.
You can be with them 20 years. It's like, yeah, you know what, Max, we're cutting down. So
here's
you
a
guys are
watch.
out. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Here's a watch. Here's your severance package, and you're out of here. Friday morning, make sure all your stuff's out of here. Where you go in here into a trade, until they come into major robotics or whatever. Not saying that you're always going to need a plumber.
Yeah.
You're always going to need a carpenter or an electrician or something like that, a mason. So. We just real quick, you talk about satisfaction, like a mason. My uncle could do it all, but my uncle built some fireplaces and barbecues, brick barbecues and fireplaces in his backyard. My buddy just did it. He's a plumber, but he's Italian and everything else. I don't say that because we're good at masonry.
Yeah.
Right.
We're either good at cement or garbage.
Right.
But he did this whole backyard thing. I was like, wow. He goes, I wish I saw you do it. So again, it gives you that nice.
It's a sense of accomplishment.
It's a sense of accomplishment, and you know what else it is when you do something well for somebody that you walked in their house and they had a problem, and now you left, and the problem's not there anymore, and they're satisfied, that's the greatest satisfaction for me. I can speak for me. I mean, I just love it that, and like, we've said about social media before, we were talking about advertising, and, when I was doing it way, way more full time, I was on a website in my town, a Facebook page in my town, and I remember people that moved to the town would ask for a plumber, and they go, "Dude, is there any other plumbers in Fairlawn?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why?" I said, "There's like, I don't know, tons." And I know a lot of them. I go, "Why?" I go, "Oh, well, we put in, looking for a good plumber or something, and your name came up like 48 times." But that was because of my reputation. So people were happy.
Yep.
And I made sure they're happy. I made sure everything was clean. Everything was cleaned up. Made sure the pets were happy. Listen, I know guys, they carry dog treats or cat treats in their trucks, and they'll throw it to the dogs.
Yep.
But you talk to the kids. You have fun with the kids. So, I mean, it is one of the things. And
it's a formula almost.
It
that
is.
you can literally follow.
But I guess, like you said, we're going to take a break for a minute.
Yeah,
and
let's do that. Let's take a break. We're going to be right back. Folks, thanks for watching. Stick with us. We'll be right back.
Call Quartz Plumbing and Heating for top-rated service in Bergen County, New Jersey. And don't forget to keep treats for Frankie on hand.
All right, folks, thanks for joining us on Plum Bums Podcast, the Everyman's Podcast, as Max likes to say, which I'm a big fan of, but I keep forgetting to say it in the intro. You got to remind me.
I know, you make the intro a little bit difficult for yourself.
Let's do a little survey. Who would like to see Max in this chair?
Nope.
Headlining stuff.
Survey. Who are you doing a survey with?
The Dirty Dozen that watches us.
Yeah. No, I'm not sitting in that chair. Know your place. I know my place.
You don't think you can do this? You don't think you can?
I don't want to.
I don't want to.
I want to be here.
All right. Well, we're back.
I like where I'm at.
We're back, and we are with Ronnie Barbarulo, plumber extraordinaire. Like I said, Ronnie had some stints in some magazines as sexiest blue-collar worker. Is it okay if I bring that up?
Yeah, sure.
With that photo shoot with Kim Basinger back in the day?
I wish. If it's going to be anybody, it's going to be Christy Brinkley. 70 years old and still gorgeous.
She's still beautiful.
She's amazing.
I remember when I was in high school, she was like the talk, like everyone was all about Christy Brinkley.
70 years old. I don't care, money or no money.
It's insane.
She's gorgeous.
But
She doesn't have money now?
No, she has money. I'm saying, but
money,
she's still beautiful.
Some people say because she has money, they're saying that's why she looks like. Says, no, she takes care of herself.
Yeah.
So,
folks, you remember about Ronnie Barbarulo. Like I said before, Ronnie is our emphatic teacher at school. He's also an inspector in Pequannock and Wayne area as the construction inspector, construction official. Ronnie had his own business for a long time, licensed plumber. I kind of want to touch base on that because you said you got licensed in 1994.
1992.
1992?
Yeah.
It's a totally different world now.
Totally changed.
Let me give you one example. When I took this over 8 years ago, maybe, my uncle, he was here, we were trying to figure out how we're going to do this. And he's like, and I was like, okay, what do we have for a website? Are we doing any social media? And he goes, and this was 2015. He goes, well, you want to take an ad out in Yellow Pages? I'm like, Yellow Pages? He's like, well, that's what we always do. I'm like, dude, are you kidding me right now?
Hit you over the head with the Yellow Pages.
What are we going to do with the Yellow Pages? So basically, I jumped in and I'm like, okay, let's get on social media. We have a website. He didn't even have a website back then. We have a website now. We have online booking. We have where customers can literally text through and do appointments from that. So social media ads, it's a totally different ball game.
No, it has changed tremendously.
I mean, when you got in, how did you start generating work?
That's a really good question. I think a lot of it really was friends and family. Just knew that I had gotten my license. I had been working for a bunch of guys, and at the end, I started working for another licensed plumber who actually wound up being my boss. Who I took the construction official job from in Wayne. but he needed he was looking for somebody. He was doing a lot of new houses, and it's like ironic because I've actually inspected those houses that I did the plumbing in like 30 years earlier.
Yeah.
Is it still standing?
Huh?
Are they still
They're
standing?
still standing, yeah. But he was a big ABS person too.
Okay.
But he would have, he had a tractor trailer right on the job site, and all his material was there. We'd have to go to supply houses, and he also, what he did was he paid us piecework. And basically, like, if you do the gas pipe, you get this much money. And it really wasn't bad because the reason he did it was because guys were getting slower. Like, if the gas line should have taken, the gas piping in the whole house should have taken, you say 2 days, guys were taking 3 or 4 days. And so he said to give him a little of incentive, it was like, and also worked out good for me because I was in the middle of starting my business out and I was still working for him. So I was getting some money in, not enough, but I could make my own hours. Like, he didn't care if you work from 6 to 12, 12 to 6, whatever you want to do, as long as you had to have it done by this day for an inspection. And if you did, you're fine. Also, any leaks or problems or anything else, I had to fix them on my own time. So you're not paying people to do things twice.
Right.
But
Don't give him any ideas.
So basically, I started out doing that, and it started growing with word of mouth. And, I picked and choose because, as I've told you guys, there's 3 types of work to do as a plumber. Service work, small boilers, water heaters, bathroom renovations, kitchen renovations, or adding new. There's brand new work, big developments or big additions, add levels, whatever. And then there's commercial work. And you can be profitable at all of them. I think the newer work is getting a little bit more competitive now.
Yeah.
But commercial work is great. You can make a ton of money. It's a whole different style than residential work. It really is. It's 2 different things, so you have to learn it. But you have to kind of be a bank to get started, because unless you stocked away about $100,000, because that first big commercial job, you're going to have about $60,000 in bills the first month, and you're not getting a check for another 90 days.
Right.
So I was able, because of when I started in Newark, as we stated earlier, which was a lot of commercial, and it was like, commercial residential, because we were renovating apartment buildings. So I had the experience in a lot of different things. So I would take anything on. I would go anywhere. Like, I didn't stay in one specific area. I mean, I did draw a line, but I mean, I had no problem going to Cranford or going down to Essex, Middlesex County or something.
Wow.
I would go wherever it was that I could make money. I also had customers that had homes down the shore, and they would ask me to do work down there, and I would, but I always would say, well, if I go down there, like, I gotta kind of stay in the house. Like, I don't want to drive there, drive back, depending on the job. But yeah, I did it all, and so really the only thing is, like, when I did expand into commercial, or tried to expand into commercial a little bit more, and not huge commercial jobs, I got into what they call the Blue Book, and it's a commercial advertising book, and a lot of contractors use it and everything else. So outside of that, in only 1 year, I advertised in the Yellow Pages, because that's all we had back then.
Right.
And the funny part was, I think I basically got 3 phone calls.
From the Yellow Pages?
From the Yellow Pages. And I was in Franklin Lakes, Wyckoff, Ridgewood, Glen Rock, like that area. And it was really funny because I remember at the end of the year, the guy called me up. He's like, and I'm like, yeah, it didn't really do anything. You need a bigger ad. No, I don't need a bigger ad. I don't need you at all. And so I was kind of blessed. And like, I
You didn't put 3 A's at the beginning of your business name?
No, I didn't. And
All American
I still am in the Yellow. And it's kind of funny you say that, Phil, because it is true.
It is true.
No, it is true about that. But also about today, I'm not the most tech savvy, but you can always find people that are. I know my brother-in-law, he started his food truck, and I think my sister-in-law with her florist, they hired a young person that kind of handles all that, because they're so much more tech savvy.
Oh, yeah.
And it works. Like, he knows today, like,
It's a whole nother job.
Oh, yeah. It's a whole other
exhausting.
job, but I'm saying it's like, he started this food truck like a year and a half ago, and just because of reviews and on this, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, it's grown up big time. But yeah, a lot of it was by word. It was by word of mouth. That's really what it was. I took a lot of pride in making sure my reputation. And listen, I did also. As I grew, I made business mistakes. I got burned for a lot of money over a couple of years. Again, making mistakes, and. But you learn. And I think today what's good about it is that the easier you can make it for a customer to contact you, because one of the biggest things I hear all the time in our business is that nobody returns phone calls.
Yeah.
Okay? And
we hear the same thing.
I think if you return a phone call, that's already half the battle. And being prompt or making sure you let somebody know, oh, we're running a little late on this job, so we know we're supposed to be there at 2, but we're not going to get there about 3.
Yeah.
They can at least run out, go get the kids, or maybe they can run out to the supermarket and pick up dinner.
That's huge to people.
They're not sitting there doing nothing.
Yeah.
And in today's society, when everybody's like, going, they appreciate that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's changed. I mean, that's changed. It's changed on the philosophy and how we bid jobs, how we look at jobs. One of the biggest things I say, not saying that it was right or wrong, compared to today is, and I think I've said this to you guys in class, is when I started the business, if you did a bathroom or some decent sized job, it was all done on a handshake. It was like, okay, the plumbing for the bathroom is $5,000. I shook hands. I needed a deposit of $1,500. Boom, they gave you a check. You do the rough. I needed another check for $1,500. They gave you a check, and then you got the balance on the final, whatever it was. Nowadays, you do a bathroom, you need like a 12-page contract. It's
true.
Yeah.
Because, and I understand what people's concerns are, but again, what I always tell people about like word of mouth or recommendations by people, there's so many other things to add to. It's like, if you're going to add like, well, what was their price? If you're going to start there, that could be a deal killer right away, because you don't know what their costs are to operate their business, and especially when insurance is going through the roof today. But I think the first thing is, like, and especially I tell people on additions or air levels, whatever, I say to them, you always want to ask the contractor or ask the people that had them, were they there every day? Was somebody working every day? Were they clean? Were they neat?
Right.
I mean, I've worked on jobs as an inspector where I've literally walked back off again because I won't walk on the job because it's dangerous.
It's so nasty.
Garbage everywhere. Yeah. And
New York will fine a company for that.
Yes.
It's like a $2,500 fine.
Like, we had one of the things we had in the plumbing code years ago, and they took it out, was that a porta john was required like on pretty much almost every job of like new work and stuff. And now it's not. Some towns can have ordinances, whatever the case is. But I mean, I know contractors, they could be doing a bathroom renovation or a kitchen renovation, and they put a porta john on the job because, listen, we're going to treat your house properly, and we don't need somebody having accidents or whatever the case is.
Right.
But today it's changed. Like even like even work, like tools. Majority of tools today are all battery. Not just in our industry, every industry. Like I say, I have a landscaper because I don't have a big yard, but I still have a landscaper because it makes my life a little easier with my schedule.
Right.
But I said to my wife, if I was ever to go back to cutting it, I would go get a battery-operated mower, like get rid of the gas mower.
Yeah.
I have a gas mower. But you don't have to worry about running for gas. You don't have to worry about, just charge that battery, boom, 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 you're done, in and out.
But the gas one never fails.
No, Max, you're 100% right. Listen, soldering, I still solder. A lot of guys use ProPress. A lot of guys just use PEX. I still solder, okay? And I use the other stuff too. But again, like the same thing we've always talked in class about gas piping. There's flexible gas piping they sell at Home Depot and Lowe's also, plus the supply house, of course. You got to be certified.
Right.
All right. But again, in my opinion, it has a place for it. I'm old school. I like setting up a machine, cutting and threading pipe. That's what I became, and nice and looks neat and everything else. And so, that
I like threading pipe.
Yeah,
I enjoy it. You're right. It looks great, even with if you're soldering copper, nice solder joints on a boiler. It's beautiful.
I've seen solder joints that I'm not even. I mean, I'm good at it, but I'm like, wow, that's really impressive. Like, not even a drip or anything else like that. So again, people today, we're all on tight budgets, but you really need to look at the person and the quality of work you're going to get. Again, like anything else, you pay, like we were just talking before we got on, about food places where the portions are getting smaller and the prices are going up for a wide variety of reasons. But the point is that it changes your whole mentality. Mm-hmm. So you can always go with it. And I say to you guys all the time, you're not going to get every job, but don't sit there and beat yourself up, or don't underestimate yourself, because you guys are going to school, you're putting the time in, and you're experiencing everything else. So anyway, I started my business, and it continually grew and grew. At one point, I had 5 guys working for me.
How many trucks?
I had like 2 trucks.
Okay.
I worked it out again. One of my mistakes was that I was doing it more like depending on some of the work, it was like as subs. But one of the best jobs that I was very, very, very proud of was a dialysis center I did in Belleville that's still there. And it was a company from Tennessee, got me out of the Blue Book. And the only problem was the job had to be done in 8 weeks. No ifs, ands, or buts. 8 weeks, got to be done. I'm happy to say we finished the job in 6 weeks.
Wow.
And the nicest thing was and it's a part-time town inspecting-wise, so that's hard too. But we did such a good job, and when I was talking to the inspector, my knowledge of some different types of venting that not a lot of people knew about, it helped. So, but that job went so well that they actually wanted me to go do 5 more for them around the country. But unfortunately, I couldn't leave my business because I was only really me and a helper, and I was like, I can't do that. But I continued to grow it, and but I kept going to school, and I would go to whatever boiler schools or learn stuff, any classes I could take, which I highly recommend to anybody in any trade they get into, but especially the plumbing. If you
learn as much as you can.
They're
learn
out
as
there,
much as you
and
can.
all these companies, they're willing to take you and teach you. And all that, you know?
They're willing to take you, and they want you to learn and seminars. And also, too, I mean, I will be honest with you. When I got my license, my boss at the time got me into the Plumbing Association, State League of Master Plumbers, largest state association in the country. And we have a local association, Triborough. I've been a member over 35 years. I'm actually a life member now. I'm also a life member of the State League, past president of the State League. But that was another thing, because I was meeting a lot of old timers, which is funny because I'm the old timer. But I was meeting these old timers. But if I ran into problems on jobs, I would bring it to the meeting, or I would call them. Oh yeah. I ran into that like 8 times. Do this, and it worked.
That's valuable.
So that's exactly. I mean, instead of me wasting numerous hours trying to figure this out, or somebody didn't know it, because even supply houses back then, I know there was one. I'll give it a plug. It's Universal. They used to have a guy, Harold, that this guy knew everything about wiring. So Harold had a board made up and everything else. So if you had a problem with wiring, you go in and tell Harold, this is what the problem is. Check this, do this, wire this, blah, blah, and you'd be done. And it worked. But again, you should never, ever think that you know everything and then keep learning. But in the meantime, I went to school. I took my inspector's courses at Bergen Tech. But unfortunately, when my mom got very sick, over 3 years, my time lapsed before I took my test, so I had to do the class all over again. But I did it. I took my subcode class, my construction official class, and only I wanted, again, to have it more knowledge of the code,
right,
which would help with my business. But also, God forbid anything happened to me physically, that I have something to fall back on. And as it turns out, I had my business. I did well. Probably could have did a lot better if I knew business a little bit better. I mean, I'll admit that. And then about 18 years ago, I just said, you know what? No. And there was an opportunity that came up for me to become an inspector. And Ed Wayne, full-time, which is not a lot of full-time inspecting jobs, my boss, who I'd known and worked for, wanted me. So he hired me, and I did that. And then, again, he learned I did like one small town, Prospect Park, still do it. But then a couple of years ago, he retired, and I had an opportunity to become a construction official, and I did. I do inspect plumbing because I do miss being in the field every day inspecting. Because what I do as an inspector is I teach. Like when I go on a job to inspect, if something's wrong, I'll try to teach them why it's wrong, or I'll teach them the code. I'm not one of these inspectors that if you ask me the code section, I might not know it off the top of my head because I do have some type of life. But I will find it out for you. And I appreciate the compliment, Phil. Like you said, if you guys call me, because you guys know my phone's always open for you, if I really don't know something, I will find out for you because I don't claim to know everything. Yeah. And there's guys that have done things. And actually, just funny, not to get off the subject real quick, but it's kind of funny because I got a phone call from a plumber who failed an inspection in Wanacue on a water heater. And it was in this place called the Reserve. And he said he failed it because something with the venting. And I really didn't understand why. Like I was trying to figure out something. So I happened to be driving to a state league meeting. It was about an hour away with my buddy, Doug. And Doug had done many of the heaters in there. And he knew exactly about it. He goes, no, you need that because of this type of heater. Bradford White makes it. It's like an extra Y or something. Because the way the building is set up, it would freeze or something like that. But again, there it is. I'm learning something on a ride down to a meeting.
Right.
Something I didn't know. So... I got into it, and as an inspector, I try to teach. I try to educate. I also try to educate the consumer. I think one of the best things we can do as plumbers, or any contractor, but as plumbers, educate your consumer.
You know what? That's huge. I know you're gonna not to cut
no.
you off. That is huge, and I mean, we kind of utilize this show as well to give the consumer info. We have plenty of other types of videos on our YouTube channel, showing people how to do a steam boiler flush, or how often you should check your steam. People appreciate that. You do it in a way where they still need you. I'm not going to show them how to do soup to nuts everything, but like the little stuff. We're trying to work on a thing where we have a video series of top 5 things you should know how to do in your own home, top 5 things you shouldn't touch, top 5 things you should call this, like a top 5 list.
That's
trying to break into,
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
And it's funny you bring that up because I remember years ago, I would do the same thing like with drains, when I used to stake out drains. I didn't do a lot of main drains, but, kitchen sinks, tubs, whatever. And I remember used to telling people, because again, I learned this from an old timer, to pour a cup of bleach down once a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
maintenance.
And guys used to say to me, why would you tell people that? I go, why wouldn't you? And they're like, well, because then it takes work away from you. Listen, people throw everything of their brother down the drain.
Yeah.
And I said, and you know what I always love? I always tell people, Drano and liquid plumber, if you have a pile of hair on the ground, it's perfect. But inside your drain, it's usually not that.
Yeah.
It's usually sludge.
Right.
Okay? And the liquid plumber and Drano, and now you got the Green Goblin and all this other stuff. But the point is like you said, Phil, people appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I would always tell them, they would say, well, how much should I do? And just a funny, real quick story is, I staked this lady's drain out. I think it was the kitchen sink. And I said, all right, pour a cup of bleach down once a week. And she was like, well, why? I said, well, because the bleach kind of lines the sides of the pipe. It keeps it smooth. Because I said, every time you run water by the drain, it roughs up the surface of the pipe. And that grabs all the soap scum and the hair, shavings, beard, whatever. So she doesn't do it. 6 months later, I'm back there and staking the drain out again. I said, don't forget, you got to put the bleach down. 6 months later, now like a year and a half later, I'm back again. And I go, are you putting the bleach down the drain? She goes, no. I go, why?
Because I like paying you to come here.
And she goes, I don't know, I keep forgetting. I says, well, put a note on the window or something.
Yeah.
Well, she starts doing it, and I had to go to the house like 5 months later. And as soon as I did, I walked in the house. First thing I did was run to the kitchen sink just to see it was working. It was working fine. I said, so I guess you've been putting the bleach down. She goes, yeah. But guys...
I'm trying to help you, lady.
Yeah,
it's
and what I love is guys will say to me, this was years ago, and even some guys today, oh, yeah, don't do that. Again, when you educate, just like we educate as inspectors, because a lot of people don't know.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, too, with people being on the internet all the time, they see all this stuff and like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can't do that. Why not?
Right.
And, like I've said to you guys, I love people, they go to these specialty fixture places or online, whatever, and they go get, this giant whirlpool, and they got these body sprays and rain heads and all this fancy stuff, but they got a 40-gallon water heater, they got about 30 pounds of pressure in their house. So the body spray's gonna go like this. They're not gonna have any hot water in about 20 minutes.
And they're gonna be mad at you for it.
Well, no, and but then you go say to them when they call you to do the job, well, yeah, but we gotta upgrade this, we gotta do this, blah, 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 blah. And that's like another $3,000. Well, why'd they sell me the stuff? Because
they're just trying to make a sale.
Exactly.
They don't know.
And everything in the state's got to have a standard, and sometimes stuff on the internet's not, and especially when you only get a 2-page direction book, it doesn't have a standard. But again, I love to educate people and help them out. And I think that list is a great idea because you're not to put a valve on an expansion tank on a boiler, but I always used to do it because of maintenance for myself.
Right.
And most inspectors like myself would really fail it. But what I would always do is if I knew the homeowner was very nosy, I would take the handle with me. Because if they really want to do it, they got to go get a pair of pliers. And if they go to that much trouble, you deserve for the boiler to overflow.
Right.
But guys used to say to me, why do you do that? I said, because if, I have 7 zones and it's the expansion tank, I shut the valve off, I unscrew it, get the pressure off as best as I can so the water will shoot up, put the new one on, and I'm out the door, and I still made the same money. Yep. Oh, and by the way, the next day you're not calling me and telling me in the bedroom that you don't have heat.
Yeah.
So I said, try. I always have, I tell you guys this, and I'll say it again, when you do work and you get into this field, always install something that you are going to be maintaining.
1,000%.
They might never call you back again. But who cares?
Yeah.
I got nicknamed by 1 or 2 inspectors Mr. Valve because I used to put valves on everything.
It's nice.
Literally, they called me Mr. Valve.
It's nice when you go to a job that you didn't do and the plumber thought about it beforehand too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then there's times you go there like, oh, God. Like I said to you, that heater before we were talking about, and I knew the plumber that did the job. I've known him. He's a friend of mine. And I'm like, dude, you put no drains in here. Like, how are you going to empty this tank out? Because it doesn't come with a drain. Like, how are you going to empty the water out? And like you said, even if I don't get the job, at least when you go there, it's going to be set. And so then I got into the inspecting, but as I said, over the years, I guess it's about 10 years ago now, because I started out teaching at Passaic County Tech homeowners. That's what I actually did start teaching out. They had a class for homeowners, And then I taught them the basics: install a faucet, fix a faucet, toilets, yada. But then the following year, the one guy was retiring, and they said, "You're interested?" And I've been teaching it. And I also teach licensed plumbers every 2 years to get their renewal for their license.
You do the renewal?
Yeah,
Okay.
they have to do 5 hours of continuing education. I teach that, about 10 of those classes. And then I also teach, which I will be doing next week, a class for inspectors to keep their licenses. I'm doing one next week. It's 5 hours. And then I'll be doing another one in Atlantic City at Building Safety Week. So I enjoy teaching. I'm very involved in the industry, as I stated, and I'm proud to say this. I don't mind
It's in your
saying
blood to bestow
it's in
wisdom.
my blood, and again, like I said at the beginning before we got on, is that it took a long time. I don't forget where I came from.
Right.
I don't forget digging trenches. I don't forget, pulling out nasty stuff out of drains or toilets, whatever. I don't forget where I
The
came from.
Everyman's Inspector. This is the Everyman's Podcast. You're the Everyman's Inspector.
Well, I appreciate that, but I'm just saying is that, and like the same thing with teaching, I enjoy it because when I could teach guys something, even the licensed plumbers, but even the inspectors, and just real quick with the inspectors. So I teach for the state of New Jersey through IATMO, which is a world organization. It's very good. And they asked me to do it. And the funny part is, we're doing a lot of stuff online now since COVID. So again, I'm not the most tech savvy.
Right.
And a couple of years ago, we were still online, and I started teaching a class. But I started the class before we were supposed to start. I hit the wrong button. And my proctor that's with me from DCA, Division of Community Affairs, kind of like flipped on me, like screamed at me, everything else, called me every name of the book and everything else. I let it go. Then I taught the class. And after the class, he apologized to me, and he said to me, he goes, I was really impressive. And by the way, the very first class I got to teach was probably some of the worst material that you could possibly get, like on access points and all this other stuff.
Just boring as hell.
Yeah, and I taught somebody that's probably been in this industry for about 40 years, and he said it was the best class he ever had.
Really?
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine. And I said, don't blow smoke up my, what? He goes, no, dude. He goes, the material you had to work with, and you kept me awake and interested for 5 hours. He goes,
there you go.
You did a great job. But again, when I can teach something that guys don't know, it's very satisfying to me now. And like I said, even with you guys, every time I get a phone call from one of my former students that they got their plumbing license, I don't pound my check saying, oh, they got it because of me. But I was a little piece of why they get it. And they have said it to me. You are a little piece.
It's true.
Like I tell you guys all the time as a teacher, I go home every night after class. Did I teach well enough? Did I teach them something tonight? Did they learn something? What could I do different? So, but one of the biggest things I was very, very proud of is, one, being a life member of the State League and being a member over 33 years. And I was the education chairman there for 25 years. So as you can see, education is very important to me. But I was president at one point for 6 months. I was president of the New Jersey Plumbing Inspectors Association and the State League of Master Plumbers. And I'm the only person that's ever done that. And that's something I'm very proud of. I had a lot of recognition. And well, the other thing that's nice is down at Division of Community Affairs, Codes and Standards, which governs our industry, I'm very well known, and it's on a good note.
Okay.
Because some guys are very well known, not on a very nice note.
Right.
But again, I'm on the National Standard Plumbing Code Committee, which I do that. I'm on the national committee that makes the test for plumbing inspectors. So I've been appointed to these because, again, I have the reputation of the concern of this industry and to keep it growing. And as I could say to anybody out there, if you're hesitant about college, okay, a trade is really good. And it doesn't have to be just plumbing. We would like to see more plumbers.
Right.
Because a lot of us are getting older and retiring. But there's so many other trades that you could do things in, and you can work with your hands. You get satisfied. Again, but if you want to go to college, that's your business. But again, the trades are a great thing to do, and it's very satisfactory.
It is.
It really, really is. But
You can build your own life. You can really jump in and get your license, build your own business. And that, people don't understand that when you get into a trade, it's all just technical and doing this and all that. But there's a lot of creative aspects to it. I mean, we do this. We have a YouTube channel. It's not just sitting here putting in boilers. There's a whole aspect to it.
It's very funny you say that, Phil, because one of the biggest, misnomers, I guess I'll say, that I always got frustrated over the years with is that people look at plumbers as butt crack, and all we do is work with, excuse me, shit.
Yeah.
And that's not true.
We're allowed to say that word.
I'm just saying, if we're not, I apologize to people. But the point I'm getting at is that we're a lot more than that.
Yeah.
And yes, there are running jokes, and yes, we do have butt crack and all this other stuff. But, like you said, it's technical. And the funny part is, as time goes on, like everything else in the world, our industry gets more technical.
Yeah.
It gets, excuse me, a little easier in installs on certain things, but then it gets more technical on a lot of other things.
Right.
So it's not like, I love guys that always say to me, I could put a steam boiler in 2 hours. Okay, well, what does it look like when you're done?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, again, we could have the running debate of copper versus black. I've had experts, and I've taken courses with experts. They believe just in black.
I believe in just black.
pipe. Okay.
I'm team black pipe.
Yeah, I started out at black pipe where I was trained. I did go to copper. I won't lie, and you know what? I got to be honest with you. Probably only about 10 to a dozen boilers that I put in copper. I've been back and had to change things. Matter of fact, I have to go back to one this summer. I'm not going to do it now, but like the whole bottom, I'm at a point now. I'm ready to tell the lady, I think I'm just going to rip everything out and just repipe it in black. And I know it's like 18 years old. The boiler's still in great shape, but it might last a little bit longer. I clean it out thoroughly and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What do you think?
But
Black or copper? What team? Are you team Jacob or Edward?
I mean, me and you have only done a couple of steam boilers in copper, but there's, first of all, I think black pipe looks really nice because it stays straight. Everything stays perfectly straight and plumb. But it is definitely more annoying to work with.
Yeah, copper's a lot more expensive.
yes,
When you do the numbers.
And nowadays, one of the things that I do like what the manufacturers finally did, because we one of the other things I'll always say to you guys, is my students, and all of my students, and the guys getting in this trade, is not only with associations and joining them for the knowledge, but get to know your vendors. Like when the supply houses have a counter day or something like that, get to know the rep, get his card, say, can I call you? Say, yeah, call me, whatever. Because again, there's a lot of them will come out to a job and help you and stuff.
Yeah.
But again, they teach you also. But again, one of the things they listened to a lot of us was, now a lot of these boiler companies have kits.
Right.
So you buy the basic kit, like you got to get like 2 pieces of pipe or cut a couple pieces of pipe, and that even if you don't want to cut it, you as long as you work it out, you need a 9-inch or 10-inch nipple because they don't come in halves sometimes or whatever. And to me, that's a great idea. So now it's like already pre-done with me, and I don't have to do it. But again, when you're all done and it just looks nice and straight, and everything lines up, and again, I know guys that go the extra mile with hangers, and they use certain types of hangers only because that's the better one. And then you got guys, like I said, they're gonna give the same price you and I did, but then they're gonna cheap out on the material.
Yeah.
And it's like the same thing I always tell people when I used to give prices. All I ask you is that you sit down with me and let me go over my proposal with you. And a lot of them used to say, why? It's because I want to make sure you're comparing apples to apples.
Exactly.
Because I used to tell people, you have to understand something. I might come in at X amount of dollars. We'll just say 5,000, and somebody comes in at 4,000. But there's a reason. Now, it could be different overhead, but all of a sudden, you might get hit with $1,500 in extras.
Yeah, exactly.
So now your price is more than mine. His price was more than mine. And they go, oh, I never thought of that. They leave stuff out. They're like, oh, yeah, but you do need this by code. Or they leave it out, and they make me the bad guy as the inspector because I fail it.
Right.
Because you need that. And then they like, well, the inspector said you need it, so we got to really put it in, And, I don't get involved in money. I don't get involved in any of that stuff. It's none of my business. I love when I do inspections and homeowners say, well, this guy charged me this much for this water heater, and I was talking to my neighbor, and I'm like, okay, well, just to let you know, the contractor you use is one of the top contractors around. I'll never say anything bad about it, and I don't get involved in money. So I'll say, listen, well, that's what they charge you. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry, that's what it is.
I tell people, I've had this conversation, and it's especially with a new customer. I come in, I say, listen, we're not the cheapest plumber. I'm going to tell you that right now. We're not the cheapest. We're not the most expensive, but we're not the cheapest. But I'm here giving you a proposal on a job. Look at my reviews. We have a flawless 5-star review, except for one lady that gave me 1 star that didn't even use us, which I'm still pissed off about. But it got our average back up to a 5 stars again after. So, but like, as far as
Let
going
it
with
go.
the proposal, as far as taking the proposal, sitting down with the customer, we have printers in our trucks. I'll print out my proposal right there. We'll go to the job. We've talked about this too. We do flat rate. So I will sit there, we'll go through all the options, and for some reason, print it out on a piece of paper is way easier to go through with the customer. You can lay it out, you can make marks and stuff. It just makes more sense. So there's a lot of stuff, and when I price something out or when he prices something out, it's all encompassing. There's nothing hidden. I'm not going to come at the end and say, oh, by the way, you need this and we have to do this. A change order is a change order.
That's different.
Yeah.
Right.
But he said it in class. He goes, you said you were doing a job one time and it was X amount of dollars and it took you a shorter amount of time than what you estimated at, but it was still that same price. You didn't charge them less because it took you less time. And the customer complained. You said that they said, are you going to charge me less because it took you less time? And you're like, no, because I wouldn't charge you more if it took me more time.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
So
The price is the price. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose.
Yeah.
But getting back to what Phil was saying, excuse me, and I think is a great idea, and I like it. That's another thing that's changed drastically, considering like when your uncle and I, way back our days, besides like now there's service contracts out there, which I think are very good for customers, but you have so much more availability of, what's the word I'm looking for? Information in your vehicle, like with the laptop. And again, if you have service contracts that are a regular customer without a service contract, but you could take a whole list of what's in their house.
Right.
So again, you're going to a job and they need the lavatory faucet needs to be fixed. You can bring that up. It's a Delta or Moen, American
Exactly.
Santa Cola. I don't want to pick on a brand. And you if you might not have it on the truck, you could stop on your way to pick it up. So you're not going there. Let me see what it is. It's kind of like I laugh sometimes with phones with cameras now. Sometimes it's nice because you say to the homeowner, as long as they know how to text, which most do, can you take a picture of that and text it to me? So this way I know. Like toilets, what we were saying about flappers.
Yeah.
I'll tell people, take the lid off.
100%,
Take
yeah.
a picture of the flapper.
Yeah.
And it's great because you can like make it big enough because
Yeah.
there's certain like cola flappers have some with like a shark thing and some
Yeah.
don't. So you get the wrong one. I mean, again, that's another thing I love what people say to me is years ago when I was in it, why don't you have it on your truck? Like, because we carried a lot of stuff. But I said to one lady one time, if I carried everything on my truck, I'd need a tractor trailer. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not going to drive around with a tractor trailer. I said, so we carry the basic stuff that we always going to see. And, people like understood that. And again, you don't want to go to somebody's house and leave in like 4 times, go back and forth to a supply
I
house.
tell someone says that to me, I say, well, why are you buying stuff from Belgium? If I don't have it on my truck, why are you buying stuff from like the middle of
No,
nowhere?
absolutely. Well, absolutely.
There's plenty of good tile made out here. There's plenty of good shower valves made out
Exactly.
here.
And
It's all this fancy
that's a
stuff.
great comparison, Phil. It really is. And, again, I think what it happens is, I think one of the things, too, with this field that I love, you have a lot of customers that really appreciate and respect what we do, the knowledge we have, everything else. And there's other people, they couldn't give a crap because they think they could do it. Because I always say, everybody thinks they can go on YouTube and they can be a plumber, a carpenter, an electrician, mason, whatever. Because you can learn.
try.
You know what I say? I say, go ahead.
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
see you in 3 weeks when it doesn't work or it's leaking.
or 3 hours.
Listen,
3 hours.
I had a friend
It
of mine
doesn't
that I
work.
grew up with my whole life. We played baseball together, sports. We grew up together. This is going back 35 years ago, whatever, when I just started, whatever. And he lives in Rockland County, and he wanted to change his own kitchen sink faucet. Rather than call me up, and it would basically cost him like some pizza and beer. That's about it, because I wasn't going to charge him because we
Right.
grew up together. He decided he wanted to do it. Well, 4 hours later, 9 times hitting his head on the cabinet, not having the right tool, he finally called me up.
Yeah.
Now it didn't just cost him a pizza and a beer. Now it costs him like 2 dinners
Yeah.
and a case. Okay, but I said, stupid. Why didn't you go? Well, I wanted to try it. This and that. I go, dude, you don't even know how to screw a screwdriver in. You want to change the faucet? But again, that's another thing that people don't understand, that the amount of tools that we need for different jobs.
Oh, yeah.
And the cost of it.
Yeah.
And the upkeep.
And the upkeep, because they
just
constantly get
ridiculous.
beaten. And then after a while, when you got cutters' blades go down, you got to replace them that or this or that. I mean, I know the general ones, I love those cutters. And I know they got repair kits, but I don't even waste my time. I tried once to change a blade. It took me like 3
Yeah.
hours just to get the screws out. I said, you
Yeah.
know what? Throw it in the garbage. I go, spend $18 buy another one. It's cheaper that way. And I said, the blade kit cost me like $9. I said, don't spend another $9. I'll get a new one. But people, again, don't understand that. And I know for myself, I could dabble in carpentry and electric and even masonry and stuff, but I really appreciate what all these people do.
Bring that mic back toward you a little bit.
I really appreciate what these people do. It's like my sidewalk, I think it was during COVID or right after COVID. And I have a good friend of mine I grew up with. I'd called a ton of people to come. Nobody ever came. Some guys gave me prices that were like, I don't know what they were smoking at the time. And I called my buddy up that I kind of grew up with. And he has his own construction business, but, and he came by. He's like, yeah, all right, rip everything out, new apron for the thing, X amount of dollars. I said, do it. And I watched him do it, and I was just like, could I have done that? Yes, but he's got the material. Like, he's got the forms perfect.
Right.
He knows where to put the expansion joint in perfect. Like, I could put the form in, probably not get the thing out, probably have the pipe sticking through the wrong way.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And then, like,
It's going to look good when he does it.
Yeah, and then he also said to me, he goes, I want you to wet it every day because more water hardens it. It'll make it harder and stuff. But I'm just saying is that, again, that's where I get insulted with plumbing or any trade where people... And again, I don't begrudge anybody for trying to do their own stuff. Don't get me wrong. I don't.
I get it.
But don't act like I could do that.
right.
Yeah.
That's
right.
easy. Okay? And you know what I love now, and we run into it because, years ago we took a couple screws out to get the handles off, or maybe an Allen screw. Now there's like, you got to get the Allen screw to get this screw out, to get that screw out. Then I can finally get to the faucet. Yeah. But I love people like, I'm going to try to fix it. If I can't, I'll give you a call. Okay. And they tell you it was Saturday morning at like 8:30. How do I get the handle off?
Yeah. Well, now you want my knowledge?
Yeah, I go, you didn't get the handle off yet. You're going to put the faucet? No problem. You got to do this. And then you wait. And about an hour and a half later, when do you think you get over here to change the faucet? So you were changing it. I just couldn't get there.
Like,
I can't get under the sink.
Yeah.
I can't do this. The best is I love with people with garbage disposals, and they got to do work, and they say to me, how do you get in there? We figure out a way.
we figure out.
What are you trying to say? How do I get in there?
No, listen, I told people one time I did get my head stuck between the garbage disposal and the cabinet. I mean, I was able to, wedge it out. But, yeah, we get into some tight positions.
Absolutely.
The other day when I had to fish myself through that the
yeah.
AC unit.
Around the
and
AC unit
he's
to
like,
look-
you're not getting in there. I'm like, I know I've gained a
couldn't
few
believe it.
pounds over the next couple of years, over the last few years, but
You didn't even believe you were getting in there.
I didn't think I was getting out. Was the biggest thing.
Listen, think about it. We work in crawl spaces. We work in different, sometimes attics. And, I love the always story I tell about crawl spaces, especially with helpers. They stare at the hole like 16 times.
Like it's
Dude,
gonna
you're
get
going
bigger.
in.
He always tries to, if it's an early morning, crawl space job, and he's like, all right. And then I do a little song and dance where I kind of huff and puff and complain that I have to go in there. But he always tries to make me feel bad. He goes, I'll go in there. That's just fine. And then I feel bad, so in I go.
No, well, then you also get from the guys like, well, there could be spiders in there. I go, yeah, there probably is. Well, there could be mice in there. There probably is.
Yeah.
I said, but too bad you're going in.
Yeah.
That's your job. And then I look at him too. I said, listen, I've been there.
Yeah.
Okay, I've done that. You know what I'm saying?
I wouldn't ask you to do that if I
I've never
didn't do
asked
it.
you to do something that I haven't had
listen,
to do.
I've seen him in crawl spaces.
Oh yeah,
He's got
listen. I've done my share. Again, I always tell the story about me and my brother-in-law. Many years ago, we did a job in Fort Lee where I grew up, and it was a house behind a house. They owned both houses. We had to run a gas line, and the crawl space was literally no bigger than 16 inches. I mean, I was a lot smaller than I am now. I admit that. But you could barely turn your shoulders.
Yeah.
You were literally on your back. And by the way, we didn't have CSST would have been great that time,
Right,
slide it through. But we fished it through, we hung it up, but we did the job. Was it the greatest? No. But again, that's the nature of the business. Now again, you can choose to pick it like I always say with roofers, they go on these really steep roofs. Okay, you can choose not to take that job.
Yeah.
Whatever. Tile guys, I don't want to tile this whole room. All right. But again, if they're especially if they're regular customers, what disservice are you doing to them? So you try to do. Listen, I had a customer that I had to run a gas line in a crawl space, and it was nasty. But I was like, whatever, got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Okay, I was working by myself, and the homeowner, she says to me, "Why don't you just run it on the side of the house and then put back in under the thing?" Because the gas meter was just on the inside of the wall. I go, "Well, I didn't think you wanted it on the outside of the house." He goes, Ronnie, who cares? Nobody walks down there.
Thank you for telling me now.
No. So I did. I wound up doing it that way.
Okay.
And I painted it the same color as the siding, so you really couldn't notice it. And she was happy. Her and her husband were ecstatic. But I said to her, I said, thank you very much. She goes, I wouldn't send anybody in that crawl space. She goes, what are you kidding? There's more cobwebs in there. She goes, I don't even know whatever is in there. Yeah. But the point is I'm just saying is that, it's a tough business. If you're going to get into it, you got to expect that it's a physical business.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you're going to have a lot of satisfaction. And if you like working with your hands and your brain, this is a great trade to get into, and I'm very proud of it.
You know what I was going to say, because we're going to wrap up soon. If you had any advice, but that's like perfect advice.
Yeah. I mean, it is. It's just something that you'll always walk away. And I think one of the other thing too is that when you can walk away from a customer, I think we were talking about it before we got back on again, and you can make somebody really happy or feel good, especially an older person. It's just really, really gratifying.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's the kind of person you are, for me, it's not about an ego or anything else. It's just that when I can take care of, Mrs. Smith, and she's 80 years old and she doesn't have anybody, and, just one little real quick story is I had a woman, again, many years ago, was an older woman, and I went and did work in her house, and she unfortunately passed away, and her daughter lived about 3 hours away. So when they sold the house, I said to her, I'll go stay there for the CCO inspection, because you had this continuous certificate of occupancy inspection. And they were so grateful for it. But it was because the lady was such a nice lady, and she was so grateful for everything I did. And and also, just one last thing I like to say is that for me, because a lot of people know I use my hands a lot as an Italian, but I love to talk. Mm-hmm. I do enjoy sitting down with older customers and having conversations with them. Yeah. One, if they're alone because they don't have a lot of company, but two, just the stories they tell of history. It's awesome.
Yeah.
I talked to a guy one day who literally watched Babe Ruth play. And I says, how was that? He goes,
wow.
He goes, it was at the end of his career. He says, but it was a spectacle. You know what I mean? So, to me, that was enjoyable. And I've also then had the kids call me up and say, oh, I'm really sorry about my mom or dad. They talk to you so much. I'm like, so what?
Who cares?
I could have left if I wanted to. I didn't. I wanted to stay. Yeah. And again, those are the little things that they do. Yeah. So, for me, and in this trade, there's so many other areas that you can get satisfaction and feel good about yourself. And I think at the end of the day, anything you do in your life, if it can make you feel good about yourself, it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Okay. That and one last thing I want to say to everybody is whatever you do every day, smile every day, laugh every day, and do something nice for everybody every day. And
that has been your mantra.
Has been my mantra. It's going to stay my mantra, and I do it. Even if you stop, let somebody go in front of you. You know what? That's just doing something nice. You hold the door open. I know you guys are like that than me, but there are a lot of people that don't do that. They don't hold doors open. So even just little things like that. But but again, the biggest thing is, if you want to be a happy person and what you do for a living, I have no regrets. I've been in the industry, like I said, over 40 plus years, and I don't regret not doing something else. I don't say I mean, there were other things I would have had interest in, but I didn't do them, and I did this, and I'm very happy and proud of what I did. And I'm proud of the reputation that I've built in. When you have other plumbers, you have other inspectors call you with questions, that's a tribute to your knowledge. That means that they respect you, and they're gonna. And that, like I said, it's not about my ego. It's just that I enjoy helping them and stuff like that. And like I said, I don't know everything. If not, I'll find the answer, because I want to learn.
Yeah.
I want to learn. And it's like,
That's fair.
Just the other thing, too, we were talking about instructions before, and we've had this ongoing thing about relief valves on pool heaters, whether required or not.
Right.
We've been issuing them, and if there's more valves, blah, blah, blah. And it says, one pool guy says to me one day, he goes, well, manufacturer instruction says it's not required. I said, okay. I said, then you name me the last pool file I've been on that there was manufacturer instructions there. And he goes,
not a closed system, though.
It's not a closed system if it's like above ground pool and you have a little heater and it goes one in and out. Once you add valves to that, it becomes a closed system.
I gotcha. Okay.
Now Hayward is one of them. They have a built-in, not built-in. It comes with it. The relief valve, fresh relief valve. It's a boiler.
Yeah.
And if they close it and forget it or something like that, it can. Now there is flow switches in there and everything else. Now if it doesn't state it in black and white, as I tell you guys in the code, but it states it in the manufacturer's instructions, we go by the manufacturer's instructions.
Yeah.
To me, again, I'm doing the job. I'm protecting my butt.
Right.
I'm putting a relief valve on it.
Yeah.
Whether they tell me I need to not. And if it does fail, well, then it's the manufacturer's fault, not mine. But I just like I said, like gas piping is one of the biggest things. Some guys are like, oh, I had the gas on for 3 months. Why do I got to put a test on? Because I want to test on it. And then I'll find leaks, and they're like, really? I go, yeah, it's a slight leak, but it's leaking.
Slight leak, but
okay,
yeah,
and I don't want to hear booms on the
right, right.
The funniest thing, the last thing I'll leave you guys with, whenever there's a fire in a house in a town that I inspected, and the first question my wife asked, did I inspect the house? I said, thanks for the confidence, honey. I appreciate that. And she starts laughing. She goes, no, I didn't know if you'd. I go, a lot of times I go, no, I wasn't at that house. And in the back of my head, I'm like, thank God I wasn't there. So, but I really enjoyed this.
Ron, I'm so glad you came on. And you know what? Me and Max have a lot of respect for you because we deal with a lot of inspectors, obviously, especially in Bergen County. But the one thing I can say about you is you're down to earth. You understand where the homeowner's coming from. You understand where the plumber's coming from. But you have the inspector stance on it. You know what I mean? And you're down to earth. You say all the time, like, you know inspectors that'll just be hard asses. And, like, you understand the business. And that's huge.
The everyman's inspector.
The everyman's inspector.
Well, I appreciate that, and I do, and I do try that. And it's kind of funny. I was on a job today, the last one I did before I came here, and I know the guy because he did work in Wayne, and he's a teacher, and he does fixes house, whatever. And he's walking around trying to explain things to me. I turned to him finally. I said, "Dude, I've been doing this like 45 years. I don't really need you to explain things. I'm only asking you, like, is that a sink or a tub? Because I was kind of hard the way he had it piped out." And he's a good guy, but he's like, oh, okay. I said, and I always love guys that follow me around. Like, if I need you, I'll call you. Go stand over there, because they're trying to distract me from something else.
You're right.
And I know, like, the funny part is, like, it's like a thing I tell my children, and I'm blessed with 3 beautiful children, and they're very good people, just as well as my wife has been great through my whole career and everything else, and supportive. But like I tell my children, there ain't an excuse you can come up with, which my kids are not parties. My daughter doesn't drink or do anything. But there ain't an excuse you can come up with that I haven't either used or invented. So don't try it. So the same thing with plumbing. Like, guys, I've been through that. I know what your point is. Like, you want to keep me away from that side of the thing because this is wrong. Like, but again, at the end of the day, let's work together to get it right. Because as my job as an inspector, I'm there to protect the homeowner, protect you as the contractor, and to protect myself. And again, the thing I'll say too is people out there that don't want to get permits. If it's not required, that's fine. But if it is required, get the permit because you're going to protect yourself. Mm-hmm. You don't want anybody to get hurt or you don't want anybody to die because of some things. So when I see things all around the country or New York or whatever, and things happen, and even my wife or kids will say to me, why would that happen? I'm like, well, somebody didn't do something right or this or that. And again, it's got to be right. If it's not right, then we're going to fail it. And there are people out there, they just want to get it, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, type job done, and that's not going to work. Yeah. So I don't want anybody to, even like with carbon monoxide is the number one thing. It's odorless, all this tasteless, all this stuff. And if there's problems, I'm going to tell people, you got to shut it down. So, but I really appreciate this. I really do.
I appreciate it too, Ron. I'm glad you finally came on.
If we ever want to get together again and talk about some other stuff about the industry and stuff, or whatever anybody wants, I'd be more than happy to.
Absolutely. I value anyone's opinion who's got experience in the business. I have a couple
guys that I'm going to probably talk to about doing this with you also, because I think it's
let us know for sure.
I think it's a great idea, and I want to take the time to commend the two of you, because again, you came last year to us, and you're very committed to the industry. You're very committed to doing the right thing for your customers, taking care of it, and also growing the business in various ways with things like this and the website and all that stuff. Excuse me. And I think that's great. And I mean, again, if you want to be in this business, you got to be gung-ho. And if you don't want to be gung-ho, then don't. But again, on the other hand, too, owning your own business is not for everybody.
No.
And if you're working for somebody that's taking care of you very well and you're happy, then stay with them.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you have to, because I can honestly say owning your own business has a lot of things that go with it that a lot of people don't tell you, like as far as stress and and everything else. But again, if that's your dream, then go for it. But if it's not, then just work for somebody and do it, enjoy it, and do the best job you possibly can. So,
folks, thanks for watching. Ronnie Barbarulo, inspector extraordinaire, plumber extraordinaire, great all-around guy. Ronnie, thanks so much for being on. Guys, we want to remind you that this show is sponsored by Quartz Plumbing and Heating. since 1961, business in 1961. My grandfather. I also want to give a shout out to Promo Bros, promobros.net, for all your promotional merchandise needs, coasters, koozies, t-shirts, hats, all the nine. They're great guys over there. It's a really good team, so hit them up, promobros.net. We want to thank you for watching. We thank you for all the subscribers. We appreciate you guys coming back here. We do this for us mostly, but for you as well. We want to give you, a lot of insider information, and we really, really want guys, young guys who are coming up, young men and women coming up, to consider the trades, to consider, instead of going to college, go work for a bit. Get your feet wet in some different industries to figure out what you do instead of just going to college. Plumbers we're desperate for, electricians we're desperate for. But guys, thanks for watching. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you here next week.